All right, hello, hello, hello. How's it going there, Alistair? How's everybody else doing? Good to see everybody. All right, so did a bunch of testing last night. Starting to get ready to do the next episode of the cooling tutorial series. So go ahead if you've not watched that, watch that. I'll bring it up just so you can see what it looks like. So over that in that series, so it's been taking me a little while to figure out how I want to do the next episode. Let me just quickly show you what it looks like here. Um, it's a nice kind of in-depth on the different cooling systems here. And so this is the video. Let me bring the title up so you can see the title. Actually, we'll go to the title. Oh, you son of a bitch. It's Stormworks Basics Cooling Tutorial Part 1. It's part of the series. You can go find it. Here, you know what we'll do? We'll put a link right in the chat. So that's the video right there. So I go over different cooling methodologies and which ones work best, and so trying to decide the best way to move forward in the series. And so this video here, I'll quickly, let's take a walk through in the editor here. So this is the control. So if you remember the last one, let's bring up the last one. If you did watch the video, let's see, here it is. So this one here is each. So in the previous video, go through. This is the control. This is small fuel pumps, large fuel pumps. This one is an electrically driven small impeller. There's a big impeller pump. Went ahead, took that out anyway. This one, the engine is not powerful enough to run the large impeller, and I really see little use of using the large impeller. This one is using the RPS connection of the engine to power the small impeller. Then we have all the same different cooling methods, except we're adding a little tank of water. That is our best cooling. And then this one here, some people said, oh, inject air in there because it makes the... I essentially think their thought process is higher flow rates automatically better. Yeah, higher flow rates of liquid. I talked about how, using real-life physics, liquids and solids are good conductors. Heat is vibration. So if you imagine the molecules, when you have a solid, the molecules are touching one another. A liquid, they're pretty much touching each other. They're not as compacted. That's why you can't compress a liquid, as they're already together as much as they can be. So liquids tend to be non-compressible. They are compressible in game for reasons that make it easier, I think, on more novice players to work with, and makes them function a little bit better in game. And so gases tend to be tend to be insulators. So you'll often notice if you look at the windows in your house, you might have double pane windows. Back in the day, they used to have one pane of glass, and it was very inefficient because the cold air inside of your house would butt up against the glass inside the house, and the hot air outside would butt up against the opposite side of the glass, and it would do heat transfer, and it would warm up your house. And so what they started doing is double pane glass, where you have two panes of glass, one on the outside, one on the inside, and in between them you have an air barrier. And generally speaking, gases are insulators. The molecules are not close to one another. They don't easily pass the vibration from one to the other. And so by putting that air insulator between the two panes of glass, the temperature cannot easily transfer, and so houses became much more efficient because you weren't losing heat in the winter and air conditioning in the summer. For example, you can stand next to a stove that is 1,000 degrees, and it might feel warm, but you're not burning at 1,000 degrees, right? Human flesh will ignite at 300 degrees, 300 something degrees, and so that air barrier is what protects you. All right. If you were in a liquid and you had 1,000-degree furnace there, it would be very hot pretty quick because the furnace would be very quickly heating up that liquid, and it would very quickly get beyond what you could survive. All right. And so that's kind of the thought process here. So a lot of people were doing this, saying inject air. I found that to not work at all. So anyway, the conclusion from the first video was my favorite is this small impeller with an electric motor. It's set to 0.185. It barely needs any rotation at all to reach max flow rate. You get very good flow rate. It's ultra compact. It's cheap. It's great. So this is the best cooling method. All right. So then what I did is I took the control and I went through and did a bunch of testing yesterday. Let me get my charts up here. So I did a bunch of testing. We'll go through it here as well. And so let me see. Let's bring this up. What happened? Okay, there's the graph. All right, so here is the chart. So if you look behind real quick first, so this is all the control. Each one of these is control. There is no cooling on any of these. And so what this example is going to do, as I talked about in the first episode, there's a relationship between load, how much work something is doing, and RPS. A lot of people are thinking of just RPS. They think that if they have a low RPS and a very high load, they'll not overheat. Not true. If you have a very low load, you can have a very high RPS and not overheat. There is a relationship between load and RPS, and the way I like to explain this is imagine doing a bicep curl, right? And overheating is you getting tired, okay? And so if you took a 1 pound weight and you were doing a bicep curl, right, you can move your arm very fast for a very long time because you're only moving a 1 pound weight. Now imagine you put a 2 pound weight in your hand. You're not going to be able to move it as fast, likely, but you're still going to be able to move it pretty fast because you've doubled the weight, but not by that much. Now let's go to a 10 pound weight. You're definitely going to start slowing down your revolutions per second, your RPS of your arm, and you're going to get tired more quickly. You're going to overheat more quickly. Even though your RPS has gone down, you're going to tire more quickly. Now, you're still going to tire if you had the 1 pound weight moving it really fast because you're doing a lot of revolutions, but it's going to take longer. Now, at some point, let's say you take a 40 pound weight. You're going to be able to curl that 40 pound weight, but very, very slowly. So you're able to do a lot of work, and your RPS is very slow, and you might actually not get as tired as quickly because your arm's not moving very fast. And so you might be able to do quite a few reps with that higher weight. And so if we multiply the weight times the reps, you actually start seeing what your work is. So for example, if you do 25 RPS with a 1 pound weight, that would be doing 25 units of work. All right. If you go to a 2 pound weight, right, and you're able to move that at 20 RPS, right, that would be 40 units of work. All right. Now if you go to a 40 pound weight, even if you can do 1 RPS, 1 revolution per second, you're still doing 40 pounds of work, 40 units of work. All right, so that's kind of how this works. And so let's go ahead and look at the chart. Hello, Rasmus. We'll make sure we always say hi to Rasmus, and hello, Variante, because I always, for some reason, Rasmus blends in. I think it's the black icon. All right, let's get this up. So this is the data from yesterday. All right. Let me quickly walk through the different examples here. So what this example is doing here is we have each of the same engine. All right. As you can see, we have gearboxes, 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 and then they flip direction. So you see they're going this way, then they're going this way. They're all going this way, and then here we go. So we have the arrow facing away from the engine, which is down gearing. And then up here we have the arrow facing toward the engine, which is up gearing. So if we go ahead and we look through this chart, which I'll bring it up for real now. I just want to explain that first. All right, so here's the setup. So the first one we had is a down gear. All right, so the gear ratio is 0.33. All right, so for every 1 rotation of the engine, the generator, the load, the work we're asking it to do is going to turn 0.33 times. So it's a 1/3. All right. And so that means the amount of work we're asking this to do is very, very little. Then it's 0.4. So for every 1 rotation of the engine, 0.4. 1 rotation of the engine, 0.5 rotations, 0.55, 0.66, 0.83. This is 1-to-1. 1 rotation of the engine, 1 rotation of the generator. 1, 2, 1, 5, 1, 8, 2, 2, 5, 3, 3, 6, 4, 5, 5, 4, and 6. 6 is as high as I can get this particular motor to turn at 100% clutch. I'm not going into fractions of clutch and that nonsense. If I go over this 6-to-1 gear ratio, we start having the clutch need to slip, and that's not good. All right, so hello, CG, hello. And so these are going to be the numbers. So let's quickly walk through these. So the first column here is RPS. Pretty self-explanatory. Now, this is where a lot of new players don't understand these things too, is when you load up an engine, right, you're going to, right, it's kind of like talking about your arm doing the curl, right? You can, let's say your max RPS that you can move your arm with nothing in your hand is 25, okay? 25 RPS. Now you put the 1 pound weight in your arm. You can still do 25 RPS, no problem, right? You put in a 2 pound, maybe it's now 24.5. You put in a 3 pound, maybe now it's 20. 4 pound, 19, 18. As you add more weight, your RPS will slow down because you were loading. A lot of players don't understand this. They go, my engine was running at 25, and as soon as I applied the clutch, the RPS went down. It doesn't make any sense. It makes perfect sense. You've increased the amount of work you're asking it to do, and it is causing resistance. All right, so pretty self-explanatory there. All right, so as you notice, we're at 23.04, 23.01, 2297. As you see, as the work goes up, the amount of work we're asking it to do, the RPS will go down. Makes perfect sense. Again, the heavier the weight you're trying to curl, the fewer the RPS you're able to do. All right, S-watts. S-watts is essentially the weight in our hand. All right, the higher the S-watts, the more work we're doing, the heavier the weight is, the more resistance the engine is suffering. So in this case, it's very small. 0.37 S-watts. As you see, 0.37, 0.54, 2.3, 3.27 for a 1-to-1 ratio. As we go to 2 ratio, we're at 11.52. 3 ratio, 20.27. 6 is a 4.96. So this is where some people get confused too. They go, this doesn't make any sense. The numbers go up and then they go back down. Of course they go back down. The way a gearbox works is its mechanical advantage, right? And as you slow down the RPS, it's simple math. As the RPS goes down, even though you're multiplying it by a bigger number, your RPS is going down. So if we look, for example, here, the best one here is a 3-to-1. So we're going 3 times 18.86 gives us 27.27 S-watts. But as we go up in ratio, we're starting to really put a lot of resistance on our engine. As we put more resistance on our engine, right, it has a braking force, it starts to decrease the RPS. So even though we're at a 3.6 gear ratio, our RPS has dropped down to 14.24, and that means we're only making 16.76 S-watts. As we go up to a 6-to-1 gear ratio, it's causing so much resistance that our engine goes down to a 4.65. It's causing so much resistance that if I go over a 6-to-1 by the next ratio up, the engine is not going to be able to run at a full clutch or it will stall. All right. And so as you can see, our RPS is down to 4.65 and we're only making 4.96 S-watts. All right. So the next thing to talk about here is efficiency. All right. So efficiency is important. So let's look at these two numbers that look very similar. We have a 4.62 S-watts and we have a 4.96 S-watts. All right. In general, the higher your RPS, the higher your load, the more fuel we're going to burn. All right, so when we talk about things like efficiency, right, generally speaking, the lower the RPS you're running, the more efficient you're going to be. And if we look here, right here, we have a gear ratio of 1.2, so for every 1 rotation engine, 1.2 rotations of the generator. The engine's running at 22.36 RPS. And it's producing 4.62 S-watts. All right. If we look down here, the gear ratio is a 6-to-1, so for every 1 rotation engine, we're getting 6 rotations of the generator, right? But our RPS has gone down. So our RPS is very low here. We're not burning a lot of fuel, we're not creating a ton of heat, and we're making a little bit more power than we did on this one. So this is where a lot of people kind of lose the track on this stuff, is when they talk about their vehicles not being efficient because they're running this. They're running very high RPS with very low gearing, and they're getting the same amount of power, right? This is the amount of work done power. And so you can see, if you were to increase your gear ratio and run at a much lower RPS, you're able to burn a lot less fuel, make a lot less heat, and then you're able to get the same amount of power, in this case, even a little bit better, at a much more advantageous thing. Now, if we move one up, look at this. We're only at 6.62 RPS. We're at a 5.4 gear ratio. We're making 8.17. So we've doubled the amount of work almost that we're doing in this one. And we're at a we're at less than a third of the RPS. This is, for example, when I make an airplane that has constant speed propellers. and I talk about how much more efficient it is, we might lose 20 knots of speed, which might be, oh, I don't know, let's see, 150, let's say 150 top. Let's see, 20 divided by 150. We've lost 13% of our speed, but we might have gained 90% of our, we might have tripled our fuel efficiency, something like that, or doubled our fuel efficiency. Depends on the setup. And so that's why, for example, airplanes will increase the propeller pitch. It puts load on the engine, it slows down the engine, which decreases the fuel burn. We lose a little bit of speed, 13%, but we might be able to go twice the distance. So it's worthwhile to do that because you save huge amounts of money and you're able to go much, much further because you're saving fuel. All right. So if we look here, this is time to overheat in minutes, and this is time to overheat in seconds. So I was doing it in seconds. I have minutes here just because the times, these are 3 digits, these are 2 digits. So that makes all the graph readable. All right, so let's go look over the graph, and you can. This gives you a good visual representation of what's going on here. How's it going there, Guard Halo? All right, let's increase the graph here. So blue is RPS, green is S-watts, so that's the amount of work you're doing, and TTO in minutes is time to overheat in minutes. So if we look at this graph here, you notice the RPS is pretty static throughout this. This means we're not really overloading our engine. We're putting a little bit of load on the engine, but we're not really overloading it. As we're starting to get in here, as you can see, it has kind of a linear drop-off as the engine becomes more and more loaded, and then it falls off a cliff here, right? We start to really hamper the amount of, we're essentially putting a bigger and bigger dumbbell into our arm, and because of that, our arm is slowing down, right? Say from 1 pound to 10 pounds, you can really still move your arm pretty fast, but as soon as you start getting over 10 pounds, it starts to fall off, and then as soon as you go over 25 pounds, bingo, you really precipitously lose the amount of RPS you can do on your arm with that dumbbell. All right, now let's look at work. Right, when you have a very small dumbbell in your arm, you would have to go at an insane RPS to be able to do it. This is where a lot of new players have problems. They say, my engine keeps catching on fire. And you ask them what RPS they're at. And they say, I'm at 60 RPS. And first of all, your first question should be, do you put earplugs in? Because how can you stand that sound? And the thing with that is you're not doing very much work. Again, this is like you moving very, very fast your arm with a 1 pound weight. Yeah, you're doing work, but each repetition does very, very little work. All right. So essentially you want to get out of this I'm doing barely any work band, and you want to start getting into your efficiency bands over here. So as you notice, the work here goes up pretty exponentially here. As we start to drop off, you notice the amount of work we're doing does more. And here is our peak work, is right here. So this is at 20.27 S-watts. So let's find that, 20.27 S-watts. Right here. That was the one I showed you before. This is peak work. So this is the 3-to-1 gear ratio on this particular motor. Keep that in mind. If I do this with, I will do a setup where I have bigger motors. But if you notice, on this particular motor, peak work is right here. We're at 3-to-1 gear ratio, 1 rotation of the engine, 3 rotation of the generator. We're making 18.86 RPS, and we're making 20.27 S-watts. All right. And our time to overheat is 170 seconds. Okay, so that's right here. All right. Once we get above that, you notice it precipitously falls off, and both the work falls off a cliff and the RPS falls off a cliff. This is when we start to overload our engine, and because we're overloading our engine, it's starting to precipitously fall off. Now, this could also be partly a penalty for having multiple gearboxes, but it doesn't matter. That's how you would use it in game. So as you can see, this is our peak work, and as we start to go down, will go down. Now look at the time to overheat. As we do more and more, as we start to increase the weight, so this is the relationship of load and overheating. Notice the line is going somewhat similar to this line up here, and then it starts to crater a little bit more. Now look at peak work. Peak work is right here at the 3-to-1. That's where the shortest time to overheat is. It only took 2.83 minutes for us to overheat at this. So when we do peak work, look at the times. This is also the quickest time to overheat. 170 seconds, 2.83 minutes. That is the shortest amount of time for us to overheat doing the most amount of work. That makes perfect sense, right? You're doing a lot of work. It's, you know, it's making your arm tired. Think of work as making think of overheating as making your arm tired, right? You're doing a very heavy weight in your arm and you're moving it as fast as you can. It's going to cause you to become exhausted and overheat quickly as possible, right? Think of it as like when you can't lift the weight anymore, that's overheating, right? So now let's look at the relationship here. This goes up in an exponential fashion. This is an exponential curve right here. All right. So start to look at this number. As we get past that, we start to precipitously get really much better timed overheats here. So as we go to the next one, a 3.6 here, we're not making that much less work. And if you look at the one above it, we're making better work than this one up here, right? So if we look at this one right here, this one, where is it? Let's find the number right here. So that one's this one right here. This is the 2.5 gear ratio. And it overheated right here, 3.083 or 185 seconds. So we're making quite a bit less work than we were making on the 3-to-1, and we're also overheating not that much later. Now let's look here. Look at the 3-to-6. As you get to a 3.6-to-1, your RPS has gone down, but your work has gone up. And look at your overheat time. We've gained 56 seconds off of the 3-to-1 by going to 3-to-6. We've also made more work than we did on the 2.5. So this is showing the relationship. This is a lot less work being done here. Or this is the same amount of work, essentially, but we're at a much lower RPS. That's the relationship. By lowering that RPS, by gearing it up, by getting the work up, we're actually able to get more efficient with our temperature here. And if you look, we're gaining an extra 6 seconds. We're gaining more than that. We're gaining, what is it? Jesus, that's a lot. 15 and then a 26, 31, 51. 51 seconds extra to move from a 3-to-6 than to have a 2.5. All right, so you can see this curve going up, an exponential curve. Now, if we look at this time here, I'll go through one by one. As we move up again, right, we look here. We go to a 4.5, right? We're down to 9.76 RPS. Our SWATs is 12.3, 337 seconds to overheat. All right, we are really, as you can see, an exponential climb to overheat right there. We go up to the next one, 5.58, and then this one's 9.90. This took 990 seconds, right, or 16.5 minutes to overheat. Now, depending on what the applications you're trying to do are, for example, you're trying to run a speedboat, right? You can't, you know, you might need to run this boat for a long period of time. You're going to need to start getting into the really good numbers if you're trying to run it for a long period of time. For example, let's say you're trying to do a drag car, right? The car needs to go down a runway, and it's going to run for all of 10 seconds. Well, if you look here, time to overheat in minutes, right? Let's see which one you'd pick, right? You might pick something that has like this. You go to your 3-to-1 right here. It will run for 2.83 minutes before it overheats. Well, that's perfectly fine for a drag car. It's not going to be good for an airplane. It's not going to be good for a boat, right? You need them to not overheat too quickly. You'd be wanting to be more in this territory for a boat, right? So keep that in mind as well. A car, for example, you're putting on the accelerator, you're taking off the accelerator because you're putting it on and off, right? Every time you take your foot off the accelerator, it will cool back down. That's why a lot of us have no problem cooling our trucks, because you push down the accelerator, you as you come up on the turn, you let off the accelerator, it cools back down, it's on and off, on and off. These are static, always running. All right, so now let's say I was going to pick an ideal place to be. I would probably pick right around here. Look at this. This is going to be the greatest amount of work, all right, for the where the temperature line crosses the work line. All right, so let's run some quick numbers here. So now one way to find out total work, let's do that. Total work completed. All right, so what we'll do here is pretty simple. We'll do the SWATs times the... we'll do it by minutes. they'll do how many S watts in how many minutes. Okay, so real quick, it's going to be equal. Let's go S watts times minutes. All right, and that's good. All right, so let's look at the total amount of work done. All right, this is going to tell you how much work you can get done before this engine overheats. All right, this one up here, of course, I pretty much have said the top ones are not good use cases. There's really no use to do these top ones. All right, we do 2.25 S watts before we overheat. We do 3.65 S watts before we overheat. 5, 6, 9, 13, 18, 23, 31, 38, 42, 50, 57, 63, 69, 75, 81. So as you can see, very clearly, we're doing more work as we move up the chart. So this one looks really good. And for certain circumstances, this would be a good running engine. If you can cool this engine, you're going to make a lot of power, right? So this is good for a sports car, for example, right? Running something like that. As you start to get up into, say, a ship that you're going to be going, let's say you're going to be making a big tanker ship, and it's going to run for a couple hours. It doesn't need to go very far. It doesn't need to go very fast, right? Tanker ships in real life do not go very fast. They want them to be efficient. They want them to burn as little fuel as possible and do as much work as possible. So this here, as you can see, is generally showing you that the amount of total work being able to be done is better the higher the gear ratio. And that makes perfect sense, right? The lower your RPS, the less fuel you're burning. And the more mechanical advantage you're doing because you have a high gear ratio, the more work you're going to be able to do. So even though this one here looks like, oh my God, it's blowing everything else out of the water at making 20.27 S watts, it doesn't have any longevity. This one here, it's only making 4.96 S watts, but it's the king on power, on the amount of total work done. That's something to keep in mind as well. Now let's look at the cross beam here. Where is this one? Let me see if I can find it. Do we have a cross right on it? We don't. I don't have a cross right on it. So let's see. We're right. It's pretty close to this. 9.3 minutes. So right here, if we look at the 5.4, this one here is where they cross. Now, I don't think you really need to care about where they cross, but think of this as speed for a boat, right? This one is going to be your most efficient boat. Now, you're going to be able to putt around for quite a while. You're going to be able to putt around for a very long time. So if you were trying to go from FJ Warner to the Arctic, this is how you'd probably want to set up your oil tanker. But if you want a little bit of speed, right, think of this. The RPS going to the propeller, right? So the engine is at a 6, here, let's quickly do the math. 6.62 times, oh shit, if I could press the right buttons, we'd be in great shape. 6.62 times 5.4. That means your propeller is going to be going at 35 RPS, okay? That's fast, right? For every one rotation of your propeller, imagine you go 1 meter forward. That's 35 meters per second in that case. Let's go to this one. All right. So let's go 6. R6, where is it? Times RPS is 4.65, 4.65. That's going to be 27.9 RPS of the propeller. So let's say it's 1 meter per rotation. That's going to be 27.9 meters per second. So you've lost some speed, but you've gained fuel efficiency and longevity. So when people talk about they're struggling to cool their boats, I talk about this in the beginner tutorial series is, you can go past, there's a point where as you add more higher gear ratio, you go slower. That's not always a bad thing. A lot of people in the game think, oh my God, I've gone slower. My life is over. No. There are plenty of use cases where, for example, let's say I'm having a struggle cooling my boat. Okay, well, start to increase your gear ratio. You're going to become more efficient. Now look at the time difference here. All right, let's go through some quick percentages here. I'll write these numbers down right here. So let's go again. It's 8, where are we at? 6.62 RPS, and we multiply it by the gear ratio times 5.4. That's going to be 35.74 rotations at the propeller. Again, we're going to assume that it's 1 Rotation of the propeller goes 1 meter, so we'll say that's just meters per second, okay? And let's go ahead, and this one again is 6 times 4.65. 4.65 is 27.9 meters per second. All right, so it's a smaller number, but it's not that much different, right? So let's see what the difference is. So 27.9 divided by 35.74. That's 78%. So you're going 78% of the speed, right? So this here is 78%, and this one's at 100%, right? So you've lost some percentage here, right? So you've lost 22%. You're going 22% slower in this case than you are in this case, right? Now let's look at the temperature here. All right, first we'll do percentage on this. So the difference is 4.65. 4.65, right, divided by 6.62. That is 70% of the RPS. All right, so you're going 78% of the speed, but your RPS is only 70% of the RPS. That's a free 8%. All right, you're going 8% faster than the fuel. So this is a good representation of fuel, right? This is 100%. Right? This is 70%. So think of it as liters. So for every 100 liters of fuel, you're going 35 meters in an hour. Or no, 35 meters per second. So for every 100 liters of fuel, you're going 35 meters per second. For every 70 liters of fuel, you're going 27 meters per second. But you've only lost 22%. You've lost 30% of the fuel burn, but you've only lost 22% of the speed. This is where you get into efficiency. Is you're be able to, the higher gear ratio, the more efficient you're able to get. You're using 30% less fuel, but you're only losing 22% of the speed. Okay, so keep that in mind. So if we were able to keep this number going up and up and up, you'd notice that we will start to we'll start to get to a point where we're burning a hell of a lot less fuel and we lose a lower percentage of speed. All right, so keep that in mind. So that's where we start talking into efficiencies here. And then if we look, let's do the last number here, 558. Oh, shit. 558 divided by 990. All right, so 100, and this one here would be 56. All right, let's look at the temperature. All right, this is running half as hot, almost half as hot as this one. We've only lost 22% of our speed. We're saving 30% of the fuel, and we've almost doubled the amount of time it takes to overheat by changing this one gear ratio from a, where am I at here? 35. It's this one right here. So from going to a 5.4 to a 6, we've saved 30% of our fuel. We've only lost 22% of our speed, and we've almost doubled the amount of time it takes to overheat. So by keeping these sort of relationships in mind, you now can go into cooling your engines. Because if you're trying to pick something, for example, for a speedboat, this one's probably fine, right? 558, 9.3 minutes is probably fine, right? You can go do a rescue. This, again, remember, this has no cooling whatsoever. If you start adding cooling, you might be able to cool all of these engines. You probably cannot cool these engines. These are probably outside of the realm of cooling. These are probably inside of the realm of cooling. And then when you want to choose which engine you want to run, this one is probably great for a speedboat right here. This one's probably is going to definitely give you a little bit better speed on a speedboat, right? That would be 9.76 times 4.5, 9.76 times 4.5. That's 21.42. Is that right? No, that's wrong. Yeah, so that's actually not even better. Yeah, so that one is not good. So this one here is your speedboat, and this one here is your oil tanker. All right, so keeping this in mind, this is going to take a hell of a lot longer to overheat. It's going to save you a hell of a lot of fuel. In a speedboat, right, you really don't care. The amount of fuel you're burning an extra 30% of the fuel. By the time you get to the rescue, you've got 9.3 minutes. you're probably going to get to the rescue in time. You're going to shut the boat down. You're going to do the rescue. You're going to go back. You really don't care about the extra fuel burn because you're doing some lucrative rescues, right? And you want to save the people's lives. This one here, you want to make some extra money. You don't care if you lose 22% of the speed because you're saving 30% of the fuel, and it's taking you twice as long to overheat. So how this applies to cooling is when you hear people all day long on all the forums saying, I can't cool this engine, it's impossible to cool engines. No, it's not. You start to get it down into here, you start to get exponential growth on cooling. Now, if I added 2 more cylinders, even 1 more cylinder to each engine on my test build here, we could probably get this thing up to like a 9-to-1 gear ratio. I guarantee you, once we get up to 9-to-1 gear ratios, we're going to be getting even more efficient. We're going to have even less of a problem of cooling our engine. So eventually I'll get into that where I increase the cylinder count and run all the tests again. All right, so let me go ahead and check chat. I needed to get through this whole talk before I went ahead and check chat because I couldn't get derailed. Hello, CG. Hello, hello. Hello, Guard Halo. I said hello. Hello, Discarding Sable. Hello, how are you? Hello, Alistair, and hello, Pothead. Hello, everybody. All right, good. So this is kind of talking about the relationship of this. So if you understand some of these basics in here, you'll start to understand why engines are overheating, why they're not overheating, how long they're overheating. So let's quickly just run this test. So real quick, again, these are all of the controls. There is no cooling whatsoever. None on any of these. All right. And generally speaking, if you know how long an engine's going to take to overheat with no cooling, right, just like that chart showed, I can pick the engines that I want. So my 2 favorite engines, right, are going to be the ones that are most highly geared up. These 2 here are going to be absolutely my best workhorses, and they're going to be able to cool the best. These would be the 2 engines I would run with these gear ratios to do the most amount of work. All right. That's what I'd be running. So real quick, we have all the tests here. I just have 1 button to start them all, so they all start at the same time. Once they hit 110 degrees, the timer is going to stop. That's going to tell me they've overheated. All right, so real simple. What's already in there? I think I just have a cube in there. Let me get rid of this cube. I tried calling it back. I didn't want to be called back. All right, let's grab it. All right, let's start them up. All right, so does anybody have any questions? Does anything seem confusing? Citra's going to go cut the lawn. Yeah, like Pothead's talking, we got a setup that doesn't overheat at high RPS. You can make engines that don't overheat at high RPS. Like this one here, if you'll notice, this one took 6.85 minutes to overheat. It's running at very high RPS, but it's not doing a lot of work. So certain use cases, you don't need to do a lot of work. For example, this is how gearboxes work in a car. All right, if you watch my transmission tutorial, right? Let's say, how many gears is that? What do we got? 3, 19, 19 minus 3. Okay, 16. There's 16 gears here. So let's say this is a gearbox for a truck. Okay, it's actually a pretty good gearbox for a truck. It's not too bad. So when you first start moving a truck, right, you want a low gearbox that's going to give you a lot of torque. It actually would be, what are we running here? It would be this one. It would be this way. So this is your first gear in a truck. You're not doing much. It's kind of hard to use this chart to explain this, but with this one here, you are down geared. So you have a lot of torque. You don't have a lot of RPS. As you go from this gear to 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 this gear, you're increasing the amount of time to overheat here. All right. I'm trying to think of the best way to put this for trucks. So essentially, when you're starting to move a truck, right, an object at rest wants to stay at rest, an object in motion wants to stay at motion. Because the truck is stopped, it requires a lot of torque, but very low RPS speed. RPS is speed, torque is power. All right, so you're down gearing. We're at a 0.33, so for every 1 rotation of the engine, we're only moving the wheel 0.33 times, okay? So this is very slow, but very powerful. All right, then you move up a little bit faster, but less powerful. You're losing power as you go up the chart, but you're gaining speed. Okay, So you're losing power, gaining speed. So as you can see, going up the chart like that. So when you're on the highway, right, you want to be going a fast speed. You want a very fast speed to the wheel, but you want, you don't need a lot of power because an object in motion wants to stay in motion. So the truck on the highway, if you're going 65, you don't need much power to keep a truck going 65. And it becomes very, very efficient, right? You can see by the efficiency numbers. So, for example, if you're driving around your truck, right, you're able to drive in 16th gear for a very long time, 16.5 minutes, without any cooling before you'll ever overheat. This is why, for a lot of us who have trucks with big, 16 speed, 20 speed, or not 20 speed, I have an 18-speed transmission in my trucks. So, let's say you have a 16-speed transmission in your truck. You can drive down the highway at a very high speed, but look at the RPS. It's only going at 4.96 RPS. This is when people say, oh, all the vehicles in stormworks sound like lawnmowers. No, they don't. If you have it in the right gear. Right? Yes, you're going to have a high revving engine when you're in first gear. Yeah. Then you go in second gear and it starts to rev down. And you burn less fuel. And you create less heat. It's why trucks drive around and have 16 gears. You need all these gears for power, and these are all your drive gears. All right, you're driving around town in these gears, and you are going down the highway in these gears. Right, that is your setup there for a truck. So you can see how it relate to a truck. Right, you're not doing a lot of work. Right, SWATs is work. When you start moving your truck, you're revved very high, but you're not doing a lot of work. As you start to get here, you start doing a lot more work, and your revs go down. And then here, as you start to get onto the highway, right, you're not doing a lot of work. You don't need to. The truck is going to coast at 65. If you took your foot off the accelerator, it might go down to 60 for a second. You just give it a little bit of power, and it will go back up to 65. All right, so that's kind of the relationship with the truck there. All right, so this one here, as you can see, this one is the one at the top of the chart. Right, this one will take, let me find the chart here. That's going to take, I'm not going to sit here the entire time, but again, look at the numbers on overheats, right? Again, look at the chart, right? The first one here, it's going to take 411 seconds to overheat. Why? Yes, the RPM is high, but the amount of work being done is low. There's the relationship between RPS and work. As we start to lose RPS, but we increase work, we start to get a point where we're starting to heat up more quickly. All right, so as you can see here, we're starting to heat up more quickly, and our time goes down. As you can see, the lowest overheat time right here is 170 seconds. That's right here in the basement. The most work at a high RPS is going to cause us to overheat. As the RPS goes down, and as the work goes down, we start to get an exponential climb on overheat. All right. So using something like this and understanding, this is where a lot of people just get hung up. I know it seems a little bit complex, but understanding the fundamentals of it is you can run an engine very high RPS with very little work, and it's going to take a long time to overheat, like this, 411 seconds. If we go down, I'm trying to find the closest one. This one's 337. Let's say, here, let's get right here. This one's a 1-to-1 gear ratio. We're at 22.58 RPS. All right, we're doing 3.27 units of work. Takes 334 seconds to overheat. This one here is 337 seconds to overheat, right? So within 3 seconds of overheat. This one is only running at 4.5 RPS. All right, we're able to do 12 units of work. 3.27 units of work, 12 units of work, right? Big difference in how much work we can do, right? Big difference in the that was gear ratio. Here, let's do RPS here. So RPS of this one, 22.58. RPS of this one, 9.76. Same overheat time. Much, much, much more work. All right. Multiply the workout, right? We can see how much work we did. We did 69 units of work, giggity, there. The same overheat time here, we only did 18 units of work. All right. So that's, so for example, let's say you want to run a generator. That's what this is using as its control, as its load, right? You start talking about a generator. This one is going to be your best power generation, all right? if you need to, let's say you're eating up electricity very fast, well, you might need to lose some efficiency to regain it more quickly, right? And that's when you would, for example, let's say you're doing a generator and you are using 19 S-watts per second in your boat. For example, my Crab 22, it uses, it's a diesel electric system. So when I'm driving the boat, right, it's quickly using a lot of electricity. I quickly need to replace that electricity. So if I was doing the Crab 22 and it's using 19 S-watts per second, I need to make at least 19 S-watts per second. So right there, very easy. I'd choose this one. This would be my ratio. Now, because this one is my worst performer for temperature, I need a lot of cooling to be able to handle that boat, because I need to make a lot of electricity very, very quickly. Now, one way you could change this is, for example, let's say you know your crab boat is going to go up 100 feet, pick up a crab pot, go up 100 feet, pick up a crab pot. Well, then you might just get bigger batteries and go below 19 S-watts per second. Your battery is going to naturally go down, but you know you're going to stop soon. So this would actually be good for a hybrid car, right? A hybrid car, you might accept that you lose 30% of your battery and it gently goes down as you drive, but you know that you're going to hit a stoplight, and when you're at the stoplight, it's going to regenerate all your battery by the time you get the green light, right? So kind of the relationships there. Let's go through some of the chat here. Yep, thank you there, Pundit. All right, so let's start looking at this. They're starting to die here. All right, so see how it's fluctuating? That means it's dead. You notice the time has stopped, 411 seconds. Let's see. I'm going to see if any of them are running still. I'll shut them all off. You know, the results are consistent pretty much every time. We're never going to get to the 930, so here, I'll start shutting them off. I doubt I've been talking for 990 seconds here. Yeah, 16.5 minutes since I started this. I think not. Pretty much ready to just, let me check this. That one's still going. This one is dead. So all these are dead. So it kind of shows you, like, depending on the kind of work you need to be doing. So, like, when you have a big oil tanker, this is king, baby. This is still going. Like, look at that temp. 82 degrees. It's barely running, barely burning fuel. Let's check fuel real quick. This one is at 647. This one is at 645. This one has burned more fuel than this one. This one's still going. All right, it's doing more work. It's saving you fuel. And the numbers don't lie, right? We went through. This one burns 30% less fuel than this one, okay? And it only loses 22% of the speed. And over time, it makes a hell of a lot more work. So yeah, your oil tanker is going to go slower than your speedboat, but it's going to burn a lot less fuel. Which, if you're going to take an 8-hour trip up to the Arctic, right, you're going to want to save that 30% fuel, because if you're burning let's say 10,000 liters an hour, and it's 30%, you know, and it takes you 8 hours, that'd be 80,000 liters. 80,000 times 0.3. That's going to save you 24,000 liters of diesel, and that's whatever the diesel costs times 2. You're at $48,000. So if you're going to be making an oil tanker that's going up to the Arctic, using this engine here, yeah, it's going to take you longer, but it's going to save you $48,000 in diesel. You know, and that's why in real life they do things like, for example, have turboprops where you go into cruise power, and yeah, you're moving slower, but it's saving you fuel so that they can, you know, pay their bills. We'll see you later, Erasmus. Thanks for hanging out. All right, so this is kind of the test. This is one of the tests to do here. And so, again, this goes up to a 6-to-1 gear ratio. If I go any higher than that, I need a bigger engine. All right, and you'll get to that point where essentially this starts to go to the point where I can't have a clutch at 1. If you're slipping the clutch, as far as I'm concerned, there are gamey, glitchy reasons to slip the clutch. But generally speaking, what you're doing with this setup, if you're slipping the clutch, all you're doing is you go into a fraction of a gear ratio. So you take whatever the engine RPS is, You go to the end of the gearbox. You could even look at the. Can I move here at all? You ding dong. You would look at the end of the gearbox here. You'd see RPSA is 26.54. You'd see that's 4.43. what the hell was it again? 26.53. 26.53 divided by whatever this is here. 4.43 equals 5.9. So that's a 5.988888713318828. That's the final gear ratio going to here. All right. Now, that's generally because you're going to lose some efficiency through the gearboxes. That's fine. That's natural. Any sort of drive system, you're going to have power losses. For example, a motorcycle with a chain has less power lost than a motorcycle with a drive shaft. Anytime you're transferring the direction 90 degrees, you will lose efficiency. So, for example, my motorcycle has a drive shaft. It loses some efficiency. Now, why would you want to lose efficiency? Well, because I don't need to ever touch that drive shaft. That drive shaft needs oil changed, I think, every 10,000 miles or something. Or no, it's more than that. It was 30,000 miles for a drive shaft oil change. Chain, you need to clean and lubricate. You need to replace your chain. You need to tighten your chain. It's a lot of maintenance. So if you have a sports bike, you don't want to lose any power because the ideal is, right, you might lose a race by 0.02 seconds. So a sport bike has a chain. The chain is not doing a 90-degree change. It loses less power through the transfer, but it has a lot more maintenance. So if you're on a race team, you don't care. They're going to change the chain. It's most efficient. You want to win the race. But for me, I want my motorcycle to have a drive shaft that I never need to touch because I don't have to deal with it all the time. All right, so I don't mind losing that little bit of efficiency. Yeah. Thank you there, Mario. Glad you're enjoying it. I said bye to Rasmus, I believe. So, yeah, so we're coming up close here. Within, it's going to be about another 90, more than that, 110 seconds till this one stops. All right. So, you can see these have no cooling at all. All right. Now, again, choosing which engine you want for the use case, if I were to put cooling, one of the reasons I didn't do cooling is, one, it starts to get into an issue where they're literally, without much cooling, I can get many of these engines to run so that they will literally run out of fuel before they ever overheat. All right. And so understanding a test like this, for example, if I put my favorite cooling, the stock radiator with the small impeller and electric motor, I've done it already. I've tested these where you can get this to completely run out of fuel before it will overheat. Okay. Like this is where we're at. 645.33. 645.33. Let's go look at this one. Okay, I'm trying to see if there's one with 33. 645. All right, see this one right here? This one here has already burned more fuel. This one, it stopped running at 33 seconds. It's already burned more fuel than this one. And look at this one's still going. And this one here has burned less fuel than that one over there that stopped at 377 seconds? 377. All right, look at that. So yeah, that one's had already burned more fuel than that one over there. All right, so again, high RPS, low load, very inefficient. So this is inefficient to efficient. All right, so it's kind of a good little way to look at this, understanding how you're getting to that end goal that you're trying to do. All right, and it's like, a tractor trailer is very inefficient when it's starting up. It's burning a lot of fuel. You rev very high, you move very slow. You go like 1 mile an hour and up to 3 miles an hour in first gear in a standard 10-speed transmission on a tractor. So you're revving way up. You're not moving very fast. But you go in the highway and you go in 16th gear in this case, right? You are going 65 miles an hour and you're revved very low. And so that's efficiency. That's why, for example, a tractor trailer has an 18-speed gearbox. A boat has no transmission. A boat has a pretty much 1 gear ratio running to its propeller. You don't shift gears in a boat. In most cases, there might be some weird ones, but I see a lot of people doing it in game. There's really no reason to do it because unless you, yeah, there's no reason to really do it in a boat. You know, unless you really, like, you have to have a speed mode. But, yeah, it's not realistic. They don't do it in a boat because, again, your propeller can slip in the water. You can't afford, like, you literally cannot move a tractor in 16th gear. Put a tractor in 16th gear, you've traded away all the torque, and so what's going to happen is you're going to stall. You're gonna lift up the clutch, and it's going to stall every day of the week. You need to have a really low gear ratio. You need to rev up real high to build up the torque. And then as you shift gear to gear to gear to gear to gear to gear to gear, you're getting more efficient. You're burning less fuel. If you were driving around in a tractor trailer at, you shouldn't be over revving anyway, but you know, you could go in first gear and rev at 2,500 RPM. You'd burn up your engine. If you're in 16th gear, you're never going to get to 2,500 RPM unless you're going downhill. Never going to happen. All right. So good things to think about with that. So again, this is kind of part of the, I'll do the next cooling video, condense it a little bit, but understanding this and how going through these, this is where a lot of people are falling down, is not understanding the efficiency curves, not understanding the different ways they're doing work. Again, we'll look at the chart real quick again. But you can see how the most work we're doing at a high RPS. So again, like I talked about, is if you're doing a lot of work at a high RPS, you are going to overheat the most quickly. So there's two ways to make it easier to cool. You need to reduce the RPS, and you need to reduce the work. One way you can do this is you can still leave the gear ratios low, right? So you can reduce your work being done by decreasing your gear ratio. That will, like you can see here, right? That increases your time to overheat. You can go this direction if you want it. Or you can go this direction. If you're going to be doing a boat or an airplane, something that's going to be revving all the time, you need to go in the right-hand direction. So, for example, in a lot of my airplanes, I build them like real airplanes. So, for example, for takeoff, you want low pitch on your propeller, which gives you high RPM. That is a low amount of work at a high RPM, right here. Low work, high RPM. So in an airplane, there are pretty much three modes in your where you put your propeller. Now, you move your propeller independently through for different altitudes, RPSs, manifolds, stuff like that. But when you take off your airplane, you want a low pitch, which is low amount of work. You want high RPM, so that's right here. So most of my airplanes, when I take off here. And because it's doing very little work, I can very easily change the RPS band. Look, the work doesn't change very much. The RPS can easily change, okay? Once you start loading it up, it takes you longer to be able to change your RPS. So that's why I don't put flywheels on my airplanes, is if I'm going to crash, right, let's say I go too slow and I'm going to stall, I need to quickly be able to push my thrust up, let the engine spool up almost instantly to save me from slowing down too much and crashing. All right. And so when I start my airplane, I want low work. So low pitch on the propellers, that's what's giving me work, is how much air it's moving, right? The pitch controls the air you're moving. High RPM. As I start to bring my props back, which is increasing the blade pitch, that's increasing the amount of work, which is slowing down the engine, right? We're increasing the work, Look, we've increased the work by a lot, and we've not decreased the RPS by a lot. Eventually, we get up to a point where we've made peak work. This on an airplane is your max speed setting. Right, your max speed, right, we have the most amount of work we're doing, the most RPS going to the propeller. That's, again, for every one rotation of a propeller at a given pitch, you're going to go a certain distance forward. The more RPS you can get to it at that pitch, the faster you go. So this would be my max speed on my airplane. Then I keep pulling the propeller back, and this is what happens. I'm asking it to do so much work, it's slowing the engine down. And I get to max efficiency. This would be my 100% propeller right here. This is where I want my propeller to be, 100%. Why? Like we talked about before, we burn a hell of a lot less fuel, and it takes a very, very long time to overheat. So and again, this is with no cooling. So this is how an airplane works. Takeoff, climb, max speed, max endurance. Let me see if I can find a Constant speed prop chart. So these are all real world, you know, cases here. Trying to see. Let me see. I'll have to try to Mooney M20. Let's see. Prop settings. All right, here's a chart for a Mooney M20. This is a small general aviation airplane. Oh, you're not going to give me the chart, are you, scumbag? Let me see if it will give it to me. There it is, right here. Okay. All right, here's the, this is the chart for a Mooney M20. This is a small general aviation airplane. I wanted to buy one of these at one point. So when you take off, all right, you're at sea level, right? You're going to go max power, 27. Manifold, 27 inches of mercury manifold, right? Your props are going to be all the way back. That's going to be putting the least amount of load in your engine, letting your engine be dynamic. That means you can change speed very quickly. That's what you want right here when you take off. You want to be able to change speed quickly. You're revved up really high. You burn a lot of fuel. You're producing a lot of heat, but you don't stay there very long. You're just taking off and you're landing with your prop all the way forward. Prop all the way forward is the lowest amount of pitch, all right? So RPM is going to be 2,400 RPM, okay? Right there. As you start to go to cruise, so best power is, let me see, I'm trying to find where my best power is on this. Try to see, all right, so right here, best economy, best power. All right, so best economy is at 2,400 RPM, all right? That's how fast the RPM in this case is the propeller, how fast the propeller is moving. 24. Well, it's not. That's not really the case. It's still 2,400 RPM on the engine, but you're controlling it with the propeller. You're actively changing the pitch of the propeller to slow the engine down. Okay, that's what's going on here. So at max recommended power, right, your engine is going at 2,400 RPM. Controlled by the propeller, and your fuel flow is 15.2 gallons per hour. All right, best power, that's best economy. Best power is your engine producing the most amount of power. Right, that's 2,400 RPM. That's going to be doing 17.5 gallons per hour. All right, so go down the chart. Here is when you start to go up high in altitude and you want to go a very long distance, start looking at the numbers. All right, best economy is a, all right, so right here it would show you'd be at 12.3 inches of mercury and 2,500 RPM. You're going to be burning 8.4 gallons per hour. And if you go to best power, you're at 9.8. So yes, you'll go faster here, but you're going to be burning more fuel. This is your economy. So by bringing your prop back, it is causing more load in your engine, slowing it down, burning less fuel, making less heat, and it is, you know, it's allowing you to have a longer endurance because you're not burning so much per hour. I'll have to read your question in a second here. I don't get it. Stand by. But that's kind of like talking about how some of these engines work for efficiency. Do you know if it would be possible to implement a beta flight controller from an actual racing drone? No clue. I don't know anything about that. No clue about Lua. All right, so that's just kind of what I'm working on here for the cooling tutorial. But does this make sense to you guys? You know, I know it's kind of in the weeds, but that's kind of understanding some of these things again is how you can diagnose these problems with your builds. You know, and going back to part 1 of the video, you know, it shows when these overheat and when they don't. Like, here's the control. I wrote these down. I don't have them. But, again, your best bet for cooling is adding a tank of water. My favorite by a long mile is this impeller with the small motor. It's small, compact, it's cheap. Like, now look at this, Johnny. Like, some of these have pretty similar times, but, like, look at how much size this takes up. Now, this you could stuff into a car or an airplane. This you're starting to struggle. As you see, it's getting wider. And these are all running the old radiator, right? You start putting in electric radiators, you're going to go up even more. So what we've been talking about most of the time here is understanding like where to run your RPS on these. So I would run, again, for an oil tanker, I'm running as high of a gear ratio as I can possibly run at the lowest RPS possible. Right? That's what I want to run. And I want to do the simple math. 6 times 4.96 tells me how fast my propeller is. 6.65 rather. 6 times 4.65 tells me how fast my propeller is moving. Right? I am going slower than this one, but I am almost doubling the amount of time it will overheat, which means it's a piece of cake to cool. And I'm saving 30% of fuel, which means money in my pocket, not in the atmosphere. Right? And I'm only losing 22% of speed. So a lot of people in stormworks, they have this fetish for max speed all the time, no matter what. And I don't get it, because it's like you're gonna arrive 30 seconds, a minute, maybe 2 minutes later than you would have, and you're gonna save 30% of the fuel, and you're going to you're only going 22% slower. Right, so, and the distances of Stormwork aren't all that great. Now, we do have some distances that are far. Let's kind of like, we'll do some quick math talking about like when it might be in your best case to do that. So, let's say you're going from FJ to the Arctic, right? That is a long trip. So, from an efficiency standpoint, you may want to go faster because you can't stand to go that amount of time. So, like, we look, I gotta move everything into knots here. Actually, we'll go meters per second. Yeah, we'll go meters per second. So that's let's see, 21.4 times 1,000. That's 121,400 meters. All right, and if we look back at the chart, where did I put it? I put it somewhere here. We look back at the chart here. I gotta bring these numbers up again. It was 5.4 times 6.62. 5.4 times 6.62, 35.74. We'll just say meters per second to make it easy. 35.74. 35.74. All right, and then this one was 6 times 4.65. That is 27.9. All right, there we go. All right, and then we have 21,400 essentially. So we have, let's see. Oh, Christ. Equals. Come on. All right, so that's per second, and then this one here will be equals. All right, so this is 56 minutes. That's 72 minutes. All right. So the difference here, again, this is going to take you 56 minutes to get up to, we'll say it's an airplane. That'll be better. But that's going to take you 56 minutes to get up there. Well, let's say it's a boat. Like, generally not going 60 knots, and yeah, you're not going to be going 50 knots in a plane. Let's say it's a hydrofoil. It's going to take you 56 minutes to get up there. It's going to take you 72 minutes to get up there in this boat. All right. Now, because it's a game and you're not actually opening your own wallet, you'll probably pick this one, because you don't want it to take more than 56 minutes to get up there. All right. Here, let's do 56. Here, I'll do the math right here. So let's say we'll do the percentages. So we'll do equals this divided by this. So that's 78% of, let me see. I'll do it the other way. Let's do it this way. All right, it's going to take 1.28 times to get up to the Arctic on this. So it's 28% longer. All right, let's go ahead and we'll try to figure out fuel here. So doing, that's essentially, let's do it off of, what was I doing before? Let's say RPS. We'll do a linear relationship with fuel. Eventually, I'll do some charting on fuel, but essentially here we have, we'll do the difference between this. So we'll do equals here. Let's do this times this times, let's say it's 1,000. Yeah, we'll say it's a boat. So it's the same. Yeah, we'll do times 1,000. So it'll be equals this times this times 1,000. All right, so these would be your fuel differentials here. So you're going to be burning an extra quite a bit. Let's drop off these from 1,000. Let's go 100. Say it's 100 liters per minute, something like that. All right, so that's going to be your differential there. So then we'll do equals this minus this. All right, so you're going to save 3,755 liters of fuel, let's say. So, you know, you see, is it worth my time to save this amount of time, right, to pay that money, right? That's going to cost you an extra 2 times that. So let's say it's just 8 grand. That's 8 grand of fuel. So if you're taking a couple containers up, the difference between making that 8 grand and spending that 8 grand, it might be worth it for you if you're taking up containers to save the fuel and go slower, because your time doesn't really cost you anything. Like in real life, companies have to figure these numbers out because they need to know, okay, well, we need to pay the captain, we need to pay the crew, we need to pay for all these people to be on board, right? And so you're paying wages. So sometimes it is worthwhile to go faster because you're not paying as much of an hourly wage, all right? So, but in game, we don't have to worry about that. So you say, if I'm going to take a container from FJ on my hydrofoil up to, you know, the Arctic, yeah, it might take me an extra, let me see what that's for, 16 minutes. It's going to take me an extra 16 minutes to get up there, but I'm going to save 8 grand. So is my time worth, is it worth me taking an extra 16 minutes to save 8 grand? And the answer is probably yes if you're taking 1 container. Now, let's say you're taking 100 containers. Probably not, right? It's probably not worth the extra, well, still probably is. You know, you ideally want to save as much fuel. This is why, for example, they don't make super duper fast oil tankers. This is why they don't fly oil in an airplane, because it's not a valuable enough commodity. They put it in a massive oil tanker and they take 1,000,000 liters or 1,000,000 gallons at once, and they move it very, very slow, because slow and steady, they save a lot of money. This is why train is also massively efficient. Airplanes are very inefficient, right? You want to take people who they value their time, and so they're willing to pay a lot of money per pound to put their ass on an airplane, because they've only got a week off, and so they want to get there on day 1 and they want to leave on the final day. But an oil tanker could take a month to go somewhere. It doesn't matter because it's moving 1,000,000 liters of oil. You know, so that's how the economics work with these things. And again, in game, sometimes these matter. Like when I was doing my VTOL, let's bring it up. When I'm doing my VTOL airplane, this airplane here, if I run this at full speed, it's 320 knots. All right. If I slow it down to 220 knots, right, the distance is not very far from here to the Arctic at those speeds, right? You're talking 65 nautical miles. The difference between going 65 nautical miles at 320 knots and going there at 220 knots is negligible. It's like minutes. And the amount of fuel I burn is thousands of dollars. So it is much better in me if I'm flying 2 containers up to the Arctic to slow down, burn less fuel, and make extra thousands of dollars at the expense of literally minutes. Now, in a boat, the difference in the speed could mean difference of days, you know. But again, most of the time they choose, you know what? That's why they have 1,000 containers on board, you know. So understanding some of that economics also plays in why they make these choices. Yep, exactly. How's it going there, David? How's it going there, Sergeant? Hello. Ah, look at that. Excellent there, Sergeant. Appreciate it. All right. So, yeah, so I'll be doing that next cooling video. You know, part of the reason I wanted to do it on the stream is to kind of condense it down and, you can kind of see what the relationship is. I really wanted to get to that graph. The graph is kind of the most important thing as far as I'm concerned. Is, starting to look at this, you start to understand it because, you can, a lot of people just don't understand that notion of loading up your engine. You want to get it loaded up so that, it's another one that you'll see new players say is, as soon as, my engine's going 25 RPS, but as soon as I put in the clutch, it goes down to 3 RPS. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. It makes perfect sense. Your engine is being slowed down by the work. The barbell analogy. You're doing bicep curls. You just put a 50-pound weight in your hand. Of course, your bicep curl is going to slow down if you go from no weight in your arm to 50 pounds in your arm. You move it at 25 RPS, your arm with no weight in it. You put a 50-pound barbell in there. It's now down to 4 RPS. That's still way too fast. But it's down to like 1 RPS, right? You can go up and back once in a second with a 50-pound barbell, right? You're overloading it. You're doing a hell of a lot of work, but you're going slow. And that's how a ship works. Ship moves an absolutely enormous propeller, very, very slow. It burns, generally, it sounds like huge quantities of fuel, but it's a hell of a lot less fuel if you're flying, 10,000 pounds of oil per run on an airplane, right? No, excellent. Yeah. So, yeah, this kind of makes, I hope this makes sense to you guys. But, I understand it's complex. It's really not all that confusing. It makes sense. But a lot of people they don't have a background in some of the stuff. They don't understand it. I get it. One test, like I was saying, I want to run is, the thing is, I've talked about before, is if increasing the gear ratio makes your boat go slower, you need to, at that point, increase the size of your engine. And essentially what's happening is as we move from here to here, we are trading away torque, which is power, for RPS, which is speed. And eventually we get to the point where we've traded away so much power that, again, your arm can no longer move at all. You stall. And so using the example, let's say I can move 1 RPS with a 50-pound weight in my hand, right? I can do 1 bicep curl with a 50-pound weight. Now somebody puts a 100-pound weight in my arm. I try to curl it, and I can't even get it off the table. That's overloading your engine to the point where your engine stalls. And in this test, if I go to the next gear ratio up, I will literally stall out this engine, and it will not be able to do 100% clutch. I think I clocked it in. It was from a 6 to a 6.34 gear ratio or something. So it can still do it, but it can't go to the next full gear. And so what do you need at that point? A bigger engine. So I could continue this for 100 years where at this point we're max efficiency. Then I put another cylinder on here, and we would go all the way back here, and we would rerun, and guess what we would notice? We would see we would be able to go up and up and up and up. We'd be able to go to probably a 9-to-1 gear ratio, and then maybe we run out of power then. And then I add another cylinder, so we're at double the power. And now we're at 18-to-1 gear ratio, and we're even more efficient. And so, but there's going to be a balance there where as you add cylinders, right, you're adding cost, you're adding heat, you're adding fuel burn, because now you have three explosions per cycle instead of, it's not an explosion in a diesel, but 3 burnings per cycle instead of 2 burnings per cycle. So that's the other thing too, is just going up in engine size. Like, to go up to the next gear ratio, it's probably not worth adding a cylinder. But to go up 5 gear ratios, it probably is worth going up another cylinder. So that'd be interesting to check out as well. And then maybe going up 20 gear ratios, it's worth going up to 4, and so that's the kind of notion that, people need to kind of get their head around is, like a bunch of us did trucks for Alistair's challenge. Like I've got where is it? I've got a 16-cylinder engine in there. This has a 16-cylinder engine in here so that it can run at very, very low RPS, right? Force is mass times acceleration. The bigger your engine, the more cylinders your engine, the increase in mass. You can make power 2 different ways, right? You get a blank piece here. Right, you can make power 2 different ways, right? You can do, right, it's force times, I already screwed up. Force equals, right, mass times acceleration, right? That's the weight. So this is their cylinders, how big your engine is, right? So how big your engine is mass. Acceleration is RPS. So this is RPS. All right, this is how big your engine is. So that's cylinder count, CC. All right, cylinder count, RPS. So there's two ways or a combination of ways, right? If you want to increase your cylinder count, right? Let's say we have one cylinder, right? In order to make force, which is power, right? Power. Let's say we have one cylinder. The cylinder doesn't change in size. We keep one cylinder. The only way to get more power is to increase the RPS, right? The other way we could do it is we could take force equals CC2, right? That's your mass. We could now go at 1/2 the acceleration, 1/2 the RPS, and this here would equal this here. Because the mass has doubled, the acceleration is halved, we should be at the same power, right? We go ahead and we double this again, right? So CC4, right? This force here, right, we could go down even more. We could go down to 1/4. So the acceleration, the RPS, is now at 1/4 of what it initially was, right? To be able to run that. So this is how the relationship works between cylinder counts and lowering the RPS. So one of the ways we often tell people to cool their engines if they're having cooling problems is get a bigger engine, run it at a lower RPS. And that's why you do that, is by increasing the cylinder count. You don't need to move it as at a high, oh my God, you don't need to move it at that high of an RPS in order to make the power. Let's do a real fast example. Then I have to go take a quick coffee break. But this is the kind of stuff I like to get into. This is fun for me. Hopefully it's interesting for you guys. You know, this is why my tutorials are an hour long. You know, there are plenty of people who are like, just do this, just do that. And it's fine. If that's what you want, perfect. But for me personally, I want, you know, there are many people who make the short tutorials that don't teach you anything, and that's fine, because a lot of people, they don't want to be taught. They just want to give me the answer, give me the answer, give me the answer, and that's fine if that's what you're looking for. I have no interest in making those tutorials. I have interest in making tutorials that teach people something. You know, so like, for example, this one right here, this is all the same componentry. Let's go like that. Let's cut this, go boom. Let's go ahead and go like this. This is another reason why modular engines are so great. It was an awesome addition to the game. Because like right now, I've just added 33% power to this engine. All right, let's go ahead and run the tube. So I've just added 33% more power to this engine. Okay. We'll let them run for 30 seconds. I'm going to go hit the head real quick, and that way they'll get fired up. I'm returned here. Let's quickly check these. We got a long way to go before they overheat anyway. But you know, I've increased the size of the cylinder, the engine by 33% here, right? So 33.3333333 repeating. So look at all right. Let's make some predictions. I already know what's going to happen, but we'll make predictions, right? So it's always good to make predictions, and then you can see if they shit. Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure I moved that properly. So the prediction is simple, right? The reason why the RPS goes down from here to here to here to here to here is because we put more load on. By putting a bigger motor running at the same RPS, let's go back to paint. Right, what have we done? We've increased the cylinder count, but instead of reducing this, right, I increased the mass, so mass went up. The acceleration number that I'm feeding the PID has stayed constant, right? It's the same. And so mass has gone up, right? So if M times A, right, that's going to give us a bigger F, right? It's going to give us a greater force, right? Because I now have more power, right? I've increased the mass by putting an extra cylinder on there. The acceleration is actually going to go up because it's not as loaded, right? This engine, it's like me having a bigger bicep. I've added an extra bicep. So this one's running at 9.22. This one here is running at 5, right? Remember, 4.58. So essentially, I've added, right, it's like me putting a bigger barbell in your arm. It causes your arm to move more slowly. But now, you've been working out for a while, you've got a bigger muscle. And so now, you can move the same amount of weight faster, right? So let's look at some of the numbers here. So we've got this one here is outputting 4.81 S-watts. Let's check the chart, make sure it's all constant. Yeah, so it's around there. It's going to fluctuate based on temperature of the engines as they warm up. The stoichiometry changes, so you're going to get some variability in there. But you see, it's within the margin of error on there. So 4.79, 19.28. So if we look back at the chart, by adding more muscle on there, 19.28, look, we're around here. So we are almost as good as the 3-to-1. Now look at the difference in the RPS. We're at 9 something, right? The RPS is half, right? So what's our prediction, right? The load is the same, right? The load is not increased at all. The load is the same. Right, the load is still 6 times the input, right? So the load is the same. We've increased the RPS. It's actually doubled. Let's go with this number. It's around here for production, but that's the only tie it has in with it. So what we've done is we're using the same 6-to-1 gear ratio, right? The RPS is doubled, right? So let's go, right? So it would be the 6 ratio there. I don't want to dick this chart up too much, but let's see what we're running here. 6-to-1. Let's see where we're at. We're at 9.16. 9.16. So let's see where we're closest to. Right around here, right? That's our closest one right there on RPS. So we should assume something close to that on overheating. Now we're making up. It already overheated. It was 19 and change. What was it? 19 point something. Let's say 19.16. S-watts was 19.16. Okay, and so prediction-wise, let's look at the chart again real quick. So if we were doing 9.16, it's probably somewhere in the vicinity of 333 seconds. 345. Bingo. So that's a pretty easy prediction to make. 345, right? 345. All right, and then we want to go, it would be 19. There, why are you doing percentage there? I'll do it on my calculator. I'm not going to do the formula on there, but 19.16 times, let's see, 558. No, it would be 345. 345. Is that what? That's what I multiplied by, right? Yeah, by that. 345. 345. No, it was by seconds. So let's see how time to overheat. 345 divided by 60. 345 divided by 60. 5.75 minutes. 5.75 minutes. All right, so it'll be 19.16 times 5.75, that's 110. There's our new king. All right. So this didn't take very long to overheat, but look at the production numbers. So now let's say we want to match the production numbers here, right? So let's go ahead and do the math real quick. So we do 81. We could do it the other way too. 1110 divided by 81 is 1.35. So let's go down 35% on the RPS. So RPS down 35%. So let's say 9.16 minus, or no, 9.16. What's 35? 65 times 0.65. So 5.95 RPS. All right. So let's quickly do something. So 5.95 RPS. Let's see. Do I have an extra node? I do not. Let's width it out. All right, let's go right there. Let's put it in with a keypad. All right, now because we added more muscle, right, it doesn't have as much resistance, it can go faster. We're going to actually change it out so that I have to, I can manually control it. So let's go ahead and spawn it up real quick. All right, so we can run this engine pretty slowly here. Was it 5.95? Let's do 8 to start with. Let it stabilize. Let's go 10. Keep going up. 15. Oh, but that's too high. 10 was pretty damn close, actually. 5.95 is about where we want to go. Let's go a little bit higher than that. Let's do 10.5. It's too high. 10.125. 5.95 right there. All right, so that's making 8.11 S-watts. All right, so notice here, that's making 8.1, 8 point, what was I comparing it to? It's comparing it to this one here. It's comparing it to this one right here. Let's change this up. So let's do, was it 4.65? Let's match the RPSs on these. So what's this one? 4.63. Let's decrease this one down to 4.63. So this is going to give us the same work, essentially. I'll talk about it in a second. It's going to be confusing until I kind of get through it and explain it all to you. We're close. So they're going to output the same amount of work, right? 4.62. Close. 8.6. 6.2? I think 6.2. All right, so again, it's simple math. You're taking the RPS, multiplying it by 6, and you're getting the work, right? So if I get this down to where it needs to be, 8.5. So you're going to get the same amount of work. If I can get these RPSs exactly the same, we're going to make the same amount of work. Now, it's a waste because I'm not overstressing the engine. All right. The point of adding the extra cylinder is to be able to stress this more, right? So now let's play with this again a little bit differently. So let's go back in. And let's go ahead and we'll hook that back in. So they're going to run the same way as the other one does. But what we're going to do is let's see if I can get a 9-to-1 on here. That's a 6-to-1. Let's try going a 9-to-1 on this one. So because the motor is stronger now, I should be able to increase the gear ratio to increase the efficiency. All right, so Let's see if this will stabilize above. All right, so I'm going to have to, that 9 to 1 is too high for this engine to run. Yeah, it's too high. Can't get a full clutch on that, so I got to go south of 9 to 1. So let's go, it's 15 divided by 2. That's a 7.5 to 1. That's, so instead of a 9 to 1, that's a 7.5 to 1. 25 divided by 4. Let's see, 25 divided by 4. Yeah. So let's do this. This is a 7.5 to 1. So this is a 6 to 1. This is a 7.5 to 1. All right, so predictions on this one is we have extra power, right? This is like adding a bigger bar, is adding more weight to the to our hand, right? And because the engine is more powerful, right, should be able to do the curl. So we have a 1 clutch, right? Let's look at our RPS. So this one's a little bit north of that one, right? This one's going 4.62. This one is at 5.39. Now, what's the prediction on how much work we're doing? We're probably doing a hell of a lot more work, right? If we look over here, we're at 10.45. We're at 5. So we're doing about double the work. Do we think our RPS is double? 4.65, 5.39. So look, our RPS is not double, but we're doing double the work. All right, we've added 33% more engine. We're able to do double the work at, let's look at the differential on RPS. 5.38 divided by 4.68. Nope, 64? 64. So we're able to, so our RPS is only 15% more. We've made the engine 33% bigger. We've only increased the RPS by 15%. And we're making 50% more power. More than 50% more power. All right, so you can see how that's the relationship there is by increasing that motor, that was wasteful before when I didn't increase the gear ratio. That would be a waste. That would be like putting a V8 in your car, in a tiny little car, and you only ever drive 10 miles an hour, right? What are you doing? You're burning a ton of fuel for no reason, right? And so this one, yes, this one's going to burn more fuel because it has an extra cylinder. But we're making it do double the work at 15% more RPS at 33% bigger of an engine. So you notice how the numbers are working out. We didn't have to double the size of the engine. We didn't have to double the size of the RPS to be able to double the amount of power. So you start to see how you can get into some efficiencies here. Hello there, Kat. How are you? Now let me catch up with chat here. Let this run for a little while. So some predictions we can make here, right? Load has gone up. RPS has gone up. So my assumption will be it's not going to last 990 seconds. It's just not going to do it, right? Because it's, you know, we have higher RPS, higher load, but we're making double the work, you know? So that would be, in some situations, that would be what you want. Yes, that's like, if only more people would, like, again, if you don't like doing this sort of working out stuff, you don't have to. That's why I make the tutorials, you know, and it's, you know, a lot of people, they just want to, a lot of people have been spoiled by simple building games that you put engine on and wheels turn. And it's cheating, and that's fine. That's what that game's about, is to make it so you can quickly throw an engine on a car, drive around, yay, boo, fun. But it's very hard to get 7,000 hours in a game like that. You know, this is how you get it, you know, the time. Oh, interesting there, Kat. So, you know, prediction again is we've increased the load, right? We have, we're gone up to a 7.5 to 1. So we've increased the load. We've increased the RPS. And so we expect that this is going to overheat before this one, all right? So let's say I didn't want this engine to overheat. What do? If load is greater, I need to decrease the RPS. So I could, you know, I could run this at a lower RPS and still make more power than this engine and outlast it, but I'd have to run down at a lower RPS, right? So I could run, let's say this one's what, 4.64? Let's say I run this at 4 RPS. Likely it's still going to make proportionally more power. It's going to last longer. Now, in game, most people really don't care about cost, but like the cost of a cylinder is negligible. But you start talking about like a car, the difference between going from a V6 to a V8, the fuel burn, going from a V6 to a V8, you start getting into those problems. You know, there are plenty of situations where a V8 is going to be more efficient, right, than running something smaller that you have to rev up all the time. You know, a lot of times they talk about engines lasting it based on RPS. Is they have a certain number of revolutions in an engine before it's dead. You know, not always the case, but often. You know, you have a ship motor that it moves at 1 RPS. You know, it's you know, the friction of the piston rings rubbing on the cylinders, it's doing it once per it's doing it once per second. You don't have one that goes 1,000 revolutions per second. It's you imagine it's like sandpaper on that piston ring. You know, one of the reasons why big engines move slow is, right, force is mass times acceleration. As you increase the mass, the force increases, right, at static RPS. And so guess what? You have steel pins holding the piston rod together. Those steel pins can only go up to a certain amount of force before they snap. And so what do? You increase the size of the piston, you decrease the RPS. All right. If, like, for example, you have a, let's see if I can find, oh shit, what is it? Let's see, 400 RR motor. Trying to see if there's, let's see, motor, just put a motorcycle. Like, they're coming out with 400 Screamers again. Back in the day, they used to have 400cc motorcycles, and they call them Screamers because they scream. They're at incredibly high RPS. Like, some are around 20,000 RPS. Not RPS, 20,000 RPM, rather. And when you do that, the piston has to be very, very small and light. They tend to be wider, and they have a very short stroke. So they go up and down very, very slightly. All right, and so you need that light weight, or else it's going to break because you're going 20,000 RPM. You know, or you can have a Harley that goes at 3 RPM and has, you know, a boat for a piston, you know. And so, like, a Harley doesn't rev very high. My motorcycle has a 6-cylinder flat 6, and it revs up to like 6,500 RPM, but it has huge amounts of power, but it doesn't rev up very high because it's got a big lump of a motor. It's got a big M, so it's got a small acceleration. You can have a small motor that has a high acceleration, makes more power than my bike. Yeah. Oh, hello, sir. Cats, you hear them screaming. Hi, buds. You bringing me toys? Thank you, buddy. What a nice boy. What a nice boy. Bringing me toys. Yeah, so that's kind of the difference in some of that motorcycle stuff. And then you get into cooling. Like, Harley decided they were going to do the same old stuff because they have protectionist nonsense. And, you know, like, for example, you need a long stroke to be able to have good surface area for air cooling. Rational motorcycle makers went to liquid cooling, where you putting liquid through the jacket. You don't need to have as much stroke so that you can put a lot of cooling fins on it, because you have water running through the jacket. So the water's running through, it's going to a radiator, it's cooling it. You get nice, cool running engines that make more power and that are quiet, so you don't wake up all the neighbors. But that's the point, is they want to wake up the neighbors. Because they got to, look at me, I'm important. So we're still running on these too. Let me see. But you can see, like, we've doubled the power, right, for a 33% size increase. And, you know, so it's only been a 33% size increase. We've doubled the power. You know, and the fuel, we're up a little bit on RPS. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's go and, let's see. I'm trying to get a little bit north of 7.5. Trying to get between 7.5 and 9. I have to add a gearbox. Let's just do it. We get a loss of efficiency by adding gearboxes, my understanding is. Let's go ahead and do this real quick. Copy you. Go there. right, 6.5. Let's see. 5, 3, 15 times 6. Or I could just multiply them out. Let's just multiply them out. 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. 2.5 times 3 times... What's 6.5? 1, 2? Yeah, 1, 2. 1, 2. That's a 9 to 1 doing that, so we don't want to do that. Let's see. 5, 2, 2.5. 2.5 times 2.5 times... What was this one I put in? 6.5. 6.5 times 1.2 is 7.5. That's a 7.5. Let's go up a number in that. 3 divided by 2 is 1.5, so 2.5 times 2.5 times 1.5 is... That's a 9.3. That's not good. Let's go down south. Let's see. So that's a 2.5 times 2.5 times 1.5 is a 9.3. Yeah, we're not going south enough here. I gotta go south more. Let's go 4 times 1.5. 4 times 1.5, that's a 6. We gotta go up on that. 2, 2, 9, 5. Let's see, 9 divided by 5 times 4. That's a 7.2. That's going the wrong direction. Let's see. That's a 1.8 times 2 times 1.8. That's a 6.48. Getting annoying. Let's see. What's that? Yeah, it's a 9 on the nose. I'm trying to get it right off the digit here. Let's see. That too. Yeah, we could run a 7.2. I'm trying to gear it up more here. I could just knock the RPS. I'm trying to gear it right. It's a pain in the ass because I'm trying to go up a tiny fraction on this. I'm trying not to go to 9. But let's run it at a 9. Let's actually run it at a 9. I think we'll be all right. Like, you'll notice the clutch will slip. I don't like to do clutch slipping, but all it's doing, clutch slipping, is it's doing an intermediary gear. That's all it's really doing. So let's just do a 9.1. Let's just run a 9.1. So again, the prediction being that we've, increased by 33% the gear ratio, that it's going to further restrict the RPS and increase efficiency. So like you see, it's gonna hold the clutch at like a 0.9 to maintain it. I can do the math real fast. Let's say 3.4, and we're at 30. So 30 divided by 3.4 is, that's an 8.82 gear ratio. So this one's a 6, this one's an 8.82 gear ratio. That's making 5.7. Yeah, it's oscillating too much. It's gonna fuck it all up because it's oscillating. But like, look at this. We've increased the gear ratio more. Our RPS is lower, right? So the RPS is lower. This RPS here is at a 4.65. This RPS here is at a 3.5, right? And we're making more power. We're making 5.7. This one's making 4.96. So the prediction would be that the load has gone up, from a 6 to an 8.82. RPS has gone down, right? So we'll see which one, I don't want to wait here 16 minutes, but you can kind of see, I'll just do a quick temp check here. They're both running about the same amount of time here. 81, 83, 28, 30. This one's running cooler. It's making more power, okay? Let's look at it again. 28, 31, 29, 32. So this one, it actually started this one second. This one's running a higher RPS at a lower load. It is making more heat. This one here is running at a lower RPS, a higher load, and it is making more power, and it is heating up slower. So right there you can extrapolate that, if you needed more power, you can increase the cylinder, run at a low. That's why, like when we say the thing of make your engine bigger, run it at a lower RPS, that will help with cooling. As you can see, you can not only help with cooling, you could make the same amount of power. If we got this right to 4.96, this one would be even cooler, right? So that's the other thing that we talk about with when people need to cool their engines is increase the size of your engine, run it at a lower RPS, and you will, for the same load, you will save temperature. And we're able to even increase the load, and this engine's going to overheat slower than this one. This one's at 39, this one's at 34. So you can see this one's making more power, and it's heating more slowly because, of the efficiencies of increasing the gear ratios. All right, good. All right, let's, I'm going to go fix some builds here probably in a second here. Let's see. Yeah, it's like Indian motorcycles. They took Harley motors and liquid cooled them and got much, much more power and efficiency out of the same motor that came into the 19th century. Harleys back in the 16th century put a sail on it and sail across the way. Can you show where I connect yeah, it looks like looks like a little electrical symbol. You just click on all the buttons, man. Click on the buttons in the editor, you'll find it. Yeah, they actually don't use rods on those. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see. It's a Kawasaki. Rev 20. Let's see. There's a Kawasaki 400. No, it was a 250. That's what it was. It was a 250. It was the Ninja ZX25R. Ninja ZX25R. Ninja ZX25R. Engine diagram. They gear the timing system. You have to gear the timing system. Like this, if you had a timing chain, the slack on it alone would cause it so that it would not time. Here's an engine diagram. It's gonna be something stupid. It's on Redbubble. Piss off, Redbubble. Yeah, I'm trying to find a good picture here. I'll find a geared timing. Yeah, like here's an image of a geared timing system. Oh, fuck off, Quora. Put it in they're all thumbnails, and I gotta click into their bullshit to do it. Hopefully, click on their bullshit and they don't make it annoying. Yeah, it's gonna be annoying. Let me see if I can. There we go. Here's a geared timing system. So when you get up to RPM like that, you have to have a geared timing system. So if you don't understand how timing works, you need to open the valves and not have the piston hit the valve. That's bad time. Don't need metal hitting metal. Not good time. And so what happens is oftentimes you'll have a timing belt, which is a belt. And, here's your crank. It goes up, and the belt would go up and over the camshaft, which moves your valves. And so you'd have a belt going up and over, and that would time it. So when the piston goes down, on the intake stroke, the cam would push the valve open to let the air in, and then as it comes back up for compression, it would close it. Air-fuel mixture. It would close it, and then it would come up on the compression stroke. Both valves are closed, and then the piston will come up and touch the spark plug, ignites, goes back down. All right, that's on the power stroke, and then the exhaust valve opens, the piston goes back up and pushes the exhaust out. All right, The problem is if you have a belt and it's moving that fast, it starts to get centrifugal force and the belt will start to go outward and it will not work. Or the belt will snap and then you're in deep shit because your piston comes up and it hits the valve and now you need your engine to be ripped apart and repaired. And that's big money. And so you also have timing chains where it's a chain that goes through. And again, any slack in that chain, as you pull in the chain, there's bound to be slack, right? Well, at this tolerance, you can't take any slack. So you notice you have a gearing system. So you have your crankshaft here goes up into this gear, transfers it. So kind of a good example of showing where the power comes in gears, right? The longer the lever, the further the distance from the center of the hub to the end of the tooth. That's how much torque you have. So you have a small gear, goes to a large gear. That's going from high RPS, low torque, to high torque. And then it goes to a similar size gear here. And then this one transfers this one this direction over here, and this one this direction over here. It turns another gear. And then it turns the two camshafts. Camshaft here, camshaft here. And those two cams turn, they do the valves. So that's how a geared system works. So when you're at like 20,000 RPM, you need something like this, or else the little bit of slack that's in the belt or the chain will cause you to start hitting valves. And that is buku bad. Very buku bad. You do not want that. No, just for aesthetics, for big gearboxes, that's it. It was a good notion they had, but the problem was, again, you had a helicopter with a lot of torque that ended up needing to have a huge gearbox. That's why they don't have rods. So, like, for example, a Harley has rods because, again, it's from the 16th century. Ugh. Harley motors. Ugh. Diagram. Ugh. I don't even want this on my computer. Ugh. Like looking at a dinosaur. Dinosaurs are cool, I guess. Not this though. So here's a Harley. Okay. Again, stuck in 16th century. So one, they have a long stroke on their engine because again you have these old-fashioned cooling fins on there, which burns the shit out of your legs in the summer. So anyway, you want a long stroke so there's a lot of surface area, so that the heat can go from the inside of the chamber through the fins, then the air goes through there, and it cools it off. Theoretically, unless you're sitting at a stoplight. So that's the cooling on this old dinosaur. And so here you have the... I'm trying to think here. So again, like I was talking about, you can't have these engines rev too high because, again, you have a long stroke on these, and the piston is heavy, right? Force is mass times acceleration. See this piston pin right here? This pin goes in, and it goes through a hole in the rod. So here's the rod, giggity. The pin goes through, and it holds the piston on top, right? And the problem is when this piston goes up, it has a lot of force pushing it up. Well, then when it goes to the top, it stops. And so this pin takes all of that force. So if this is, so again, there's two ways to make force, right? Mass and acceleration. The mass stays the same, right? You're not changing the weight of this. It's the same. But acceleration does change. So if you change this acceleration and you rev too high, this could go up. And when the rod goes to pull it back down, it snaps this pin and boom, detonates the engine because you've got metal in that cylinder now, right? So it limits how fast the engine can turn, right? Now, let's see if I can find, let's see, Ninja 250R diagram. Do engine diagram. I've found this engine before. This is the one that runs 20 grand. 20,000 RPM. They don't have a good one. Let's see. Let's see. Something modern. Let's see. What's the Honda 600 RR engine diagram? We ride Hondas here. Trying to find a good diagram here. It's being a pain in the ass to find a good diagram. Let's see if we can find one here. So generally, you get into like a really like here. So one thing you do is, in order to increase the mass, you add more cylinders. So a Harley is still running on 2 cylinders. Here's they're adding more cylinders here. This is a 4. Is that a? Yeah, that's an inline 4 on this one. So generally, these are known as screamers because at all times, one cylinder is on its power stroke making noise. So like you'll have one cylinder, they call them thumpers because it goes thump, 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 because it's intake, compression, combustion, exhaust, intake, compression, combustion, exhaust, intake, compression, combustion, exhaust. Right, so that's what it sounds like. Intake, compression, combustion, exhaust. Right, now you have a 2-cylinder, right? So one is going intake, compression, combustion. You know, and so they're off-centered, so it goes dun 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 dun, because one of them's off, and it's one of them's popping while the other one, and then the other one pops, right? Then you have a 4-cylinder. It's pop, 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 pop. All right, so that's a screamer because it's always going pop, 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 pop. So that's what that sounds like. So the different, that's why, that's exactly what a 4-cylinder sounds like, right? You think of a 4-cylinder motorcycle sitting at a stoplight and goes because it's each cylinder is popping one sequentially after the other. I don't know what my 6-cylinder, well, I know what my 6-cylinder sounds like, but I'd have to look at the firing order of it. But anyway, so one the way that they do these is these are wider pistons that do not travel up and down as much, and so they're very small. And so because they're small, they don't weigh much. And because they don't weigh much, right, force mass times acceleration, if you decrease the mass, you can increase the acceleration, right? So something like this makes oodles more power than a Harley for horsepower numbers because it's able to rev super, super high, right? So that, you know, they'll go 10,000 RPM, where the Harley's at 4 or 5 RPM. Yeah, so it's like, let's see if this is a good diagram. This is not a too bad of a diagram. It's a little bit of a. This one's better. Fine. You son of a bitch. You can be small, huh? I don't want to click on all the links, but you know. And then the other thing too that limits the speed is if you look here, you see these rods. You have these push rods. You have one here. You have one here. See how this rod comes up in this channel, and it goes to this rocker linkage here. And see this valve right here? So when the rod comes up, it pushes on this and it rotates it, and that pushes the valve down. So see, this arm here comes up, this arm goes down, that opens the valve. Now you start getting into problems with this. Again, the more you add this sort of bullshit, as you can see how there's eccentric areas on this? As this comes up to the point, it pushes that rod up. So as this rotates, you can actually see that's for this rod right here. So right here, you notice the rod is down, the valve is down. When this comes up, it pushes on this wheel, it pushes the rod up, it pushes the valve down. All right. You start getting into problems with that because, again, you have a rod going up and down, 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 up and down. Every place that rod is connected has to be strong. All these bolts have to be strong. This rotation point has to be strong. The rod itself has to be strong. And so that limits how fast it can do it. All right. So you start getting into timing chains. The chain can move a hell of a lot faster than these rods can. That's why they generally have timing chains on a sport bike. You start getting, like I said, the insane 20,000 RPM sport bikes. They need gears because the chain has too much slack in it. Imagine the slack in this dinosaur. You know. So that's all the sort of things that they did. Let's see if I can find the Indian Harley engine. Let's see. Trying to see if I can see the liquid cooled one. So anyway, I'm not going to go through it for too long. But anyway, so like Indian took essentially one of the Harley engines and they liquid cooled it and were able to get a hell of a lot more power out of this exact same engine by just bringing it up to the 19th century. No, gearbox size doesn't matter. It's already been answered, but I'll answer it again. Gearbox size, okay, yeah, they used to, but not for a long time. Ford Focus, 1000cc 3-cylinder EcoBoost with wet belt. Yeah, an insult to dinosaurs, exactly. Anna, are you being rude? Do you need a break? Pinhead? Yeah, I was going to say pinhead. Yeah, well, that's why most four cylinders are known as screamers because of that. Like a V4 has a different sound. All right, so look at this. All right, this engine makes more power. Remember, it's kind of going on that tangent, try to get these engines to overheat. Look at the temperature. 89C, right? We're still making 5.6 S-watts. This one was 4.95, I believe, when it was running. This one ran for 990, which, again, we checked the chart. Check the chart. 990, so it's been consistent. The numbers have all been the same. 990. All right. So by adding that cylinder, we're making more power, and our temperature's going up. All right. So as you can see, like I could put this out for 100 years. We go up to 27:1 gear ratios and have huge efficiencies and huge savings in temperature over time. But I think I'll do the video. It's going to be cut down, of course, but I'll go through the numbers mostly. But you can kind of see it as the example is by adding this cylinder, by running at a lower RPS, we're able to make an engine that is more efficient, makes more power. Now, I should have stopped this then, but let's look real quick. Let's see what the fuel is. 64455, 64265. So likely, if I were to run these numbers, here, I'll run the numbers. We'll run it in a second when this dies. Hopefully this dies soon. Oh, geez, we're at 93 degrees. So let's say this goes likely. I'll add this to the chart. All right. We'll add this one to the chart here real quick. All right, so we're at a, oh shit. See, this is why I don't want to go into the gear ratios here. Let's do this real quick. All right, let's go. This is an 8.88, I think. Let me quickly check it. Let's see, 29.5 divided by 3.45. 29.5. 29.5 divided by 3.45 is 8.55. All right, 8.55 RPS, 3.45 as stated. I want to get all the numbers in. 3.45, shit. 3.45. Let's see. We've got S-watts. 5. Let's do 5.55. I'm gonna fuck up some of this math doing it. It's like we're literally in fractions. We're so in fractions at this point. Let's say 5.55, because it's oscillating because the clutch is going. That's why I didn't want to get into the clutches. But oh my god, could you not? All right, and then I got to figure out the overheat time, but. So make a prediction off this. We've got an exponential rise in overheating on there. So likely what's going to happen is this one's going to scream up. This isn't really a great example to add to the chart because we've added a cylinder. But again, if we put them on the single cylinders, we can make some estimations of what's going on here. Yeah, let me know. I won't add this to the chart, but likely the prediction is going to be pretty simple. Is the temperature is going to take a lot longer. Overall, this number here, the total amount of work completed is going to be higher. So, like, you can already see it's higher. Like, even if we didn't make as much work, you can see we're already up to 91, where this is at 81, and we're still running. Let's see. It's going to take a long time for this to overheat. Yeah, see, we've still got 11 more degrees to go. It's not gaining temperature very fast. So, like, we'll quickly assume a number because I don't want to wait. Let's say it takes 1,500. So notice the rise. All right. So it's going to take that much longer. So you see how it's a pretty simple solution. If you're having cooling problems and you want to make the same amount of power or even more, increase the size of your engine. Increase the size of your engine, run it around the same RPS, and what you're going to find is that you are going to take a hell of a lot longer to cool. Like if we added 4 cylinders and we ran it around the same RPS, we would be able to put a huge gear ratio on there. Let's say oh, I don't know, 15 to 1 on a 4-cylinder maybe. Probably not that high, but let's say 12 to 1 on a 4-cylinder. It's going to be way up here off the chart on how long it takes to overheat. And you notice that the work we're doing has gone up. So we're able to do more work. It's going to take longer. So it's a really easy way to understand how to increase your power, how to decrease your cooling problems. You know, so that's helpful, I would say. You know, so if we were to make a prediction, what would happen if I ran, let's say I went to all 4 cylinders. Looking at the chart, the prediction for running 4 cylinders is, 1, because we're increasing the amount of power, we're not going to get as much of an RPS drop-off. It's going to take longer for the RPS to drop off, right? And we're going to be able to increase the gear ratio higher and higher and higher and higher. All right, and because we're able to increase the gear ratio higher and higher and higher, we're also going to increase the amount of temperature. We're going to be able to, how long before we overtemp, and we're also going to increase the amount of power. It all makes sense, right? You're putting a bigger muscle on. You're going to be able to do more work for longer, you know. But it's still going to, you know, you still have some general range like this going on. It's just going to move the whole chart a different direction. Yep. Yeah, that's why they call them screamers, the engine. There's a good video. I can't play the video or they'll try to demonetize my shit. But they go through the different engine sounds and why they sound the way they do. And again, you can think of it as that compression, combustion, intake, compression, combustion, exhaust cycle. And you know, you have 4 cylinders, it's gonna give you that noise, you know. Because each one's on a different stroke. Like, I would love it if they added that to the game, but now imagine the comment section of people having no clue how an engine works, trying to figure it out. So they already have simplified a bunch of the stuff, you know, just not that much. All right, so somebody said I had issues with the Crab 22. I tested it out. Nope, it's fine. Autopilot works fine. It's literally in the tutorial video, so that's fine. I was going to work on that, but I didn't need to work on that. Let's see where we're at here. What are we at time-wise? Yeah, we've been on for a while. Let's see what I want to do here. Quickly check, see if I have any more comments on that. I don't think I do. I was going to work on the Crab 22, but literally it works fine. Let me see. I got, how many days we got on Alistair's challenge? Let's see. Let's do a little work on that. I want to do a little work at a time. That's almost done. I don't want to get to the point where I'm, you know, busy and crunching for it. Let's grab that. Grab the caribou. But crabbing's been fun. We'll do multiplayer some more. I might even switch over to multiplayer, see how this goes. If I'm getting bored or annoyed by building this, we'll quickly do, switch over and do some multiplayer. But I like the multiplayer career series. That's been going pretty well. We're way overfueled for this compared to the real one. Let's continue work on panels. This one's getting clean to where it needs to be. How many points am I losing, Alistair, for having a different number of doors? We'll call it a retrofit. Hello, Aaron. Good to see you. How are you? All right, bats are in. So one notion I had, Alistair, that could be kind of interesting is, so these are supposed to be primers. So I'm telling Alistair because it's his challenge. These are primers. So what I was thinking of doing is I'm going to be doing cross-feed pumps. And so you'll be able to take fuel from the right side, move it to the left side to balance. I got to find where they are on the real plane. But one thought I had was for the primers, what you would do is you'd turn on the boost pump going that direction, and it would just increase the tank pressure to the engine. And so it's not really going to have an effect, but it would do what the real one would do, is it would pressurize the fuel to input the cylinder. So that's what I was thinking of doing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'll show you why I added doors. So I believe in the real one, there's one door here. I added another door on the other side, and then I added one here. And the reason is because if I put the pallets in, you'd have to climb over the top. So I might look and see what the real one has, but I don't think they have up front doors. I gotta look at them. So that's one thought on primers. I think this is done. Starters are running. Those are good. Starter, gear horn test. We did gear horn test. That's all working fine. This one is hydraulic pressure, park brake, and a park brake release. I don't think it's a release. I think I'm having it as a park brake set. So, yeah, park brake. I think it's park brake set. So I need hydraulic pressure. Let's see. I can fake it or I can not fake it. I'm trying to decide which to do. This doesn't have an insane amount of power, so I kind of got to play with that a little bit. One thing I wanted to do was, let's play with this a sec. I gotta PID tune this a little bit. That's gross. I gotta PID tune this. I gotta put in some D value on this. I want to do that now. It's barely has an issue. I don't want to screw with it much. Trying to decide a relation for the. Let's see if I can find an exponential. Exponential function. Exponential functions. It's really not how it's going to work. See, I'll bring up let me find the hydraulic diagram for this. Look at the hydraulic diagram. That's going to give me the best bet. Let's see. Let's look at the hydraulic diagram here. Yeah, the nice thing with the pressurization is I can do this, but I also have to run impellers, which take quite a bit of power off. So, and I only have a 16-cylinder engines in here, so they're pretty small as it is. Let's look at hydraulics real quick. Let's see. Go to the index. Gonna take forever to load. Go through panels while that's loading. That's all good. I think we have oil pressure needs to be faked out. Fuel pressure. I can run fuel pressure off of. I can run a boost pump on there. I can run a pressure gauge off the fuel. We'll do that. Let's do that right now. Fuel pressure is 1 and 4. Okay, 1 and 4. Where are you at, fuel? Gonna be annoying. Oh, actually, you're not. Gorgeous. This is gorgeous. All right, that is gorgeous. Let's go ahead and I gotta see how these are symmetried. Perfect. All right, good. We're symmetrical here. Cut them. Stop. Cut. No, it's not gonna work like that. I gotta do it this way. All right, that's fine. I don't want my engines inverted. That's not how they be IRL. You'd have the same engine. Pressure gauge 2. I guarantee it's gonna be 2. Nope, I think it's 1. Nah, bitch, it's 2. Standard stormworks. Everything's too fucking big. Yeah. Piss. It's not a huge deal, but it's a pain in the ass. Why does this have to be 2? I don't know. Why they decided that has to be 2. Did it go in? It did. Okay, good. Alright, let's go. Do. Alright, there's our actual fuel pressures using the pressure mechanics of the game, which is awesome. Alright, what goes there? Nada. Oil pressure and fuel pressures. What do you, sir, madam? Flaps, temps. I'll just make a new one here. come on. Number 1. All right. And oil pressure often is based off of RPS, or wouldn't really be manifold pressure. It would generally, because you have an oil pump, so it'd be based off of RPM. So it should be 3.4, I'd say. Let me just double check, make sure that's reading right. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, come on, 3, 4. All right, 3 and 4 on those. The hell is it? I just put it in there. There's. And why is this block 2 blocks wide? I don't get that. What are you supposed to be there, madam? Oh, that's the tuner. Copy. Right, that's going to have fuel pressure in there. Let's go ahead and look at it and see where it needs to be. Reading 0. What the bullshit is that? Why is everything lit up too? Why are you reading 0 on the fuel pressure? What crikey damn planet is that? Why is it reading no fuel pressure? I crack one, see what happens. What? Ignition 1. What? Mixture is rich. Why are you not starting? I'm just trying to... It's an electrical issue, okay. What planet is this? Oh, I never did the actual microcontroller. That's why. Oop. That would do it. All right. I didn't actually do anything on the microcontroller. I just plumbed it first. Let's see. And then let's see. It's running atmospheres. I want it in PSI. PSI to, or do ATM. ATM to PSI. It may be inches of mercury. I'm not sure. I'd have to look. But 1469 giggity. All right, good. That's it. And we'll do oil pressure at some point. Listen, you. Get that purple bullshit and grab it. Thank you. Let's go take a look at that. So now when we do primers, we should get a pressure increase. So what's happening here is the fuel does not spawn in the pipes. So the pipes are empty. So pretty simple. As you increase the volume, you decrease the pressure. So if you have 1 liter of space and you have 1 liter of gas, right? You're at one atmosphere. If you double the volume, you decrease the pressure by half. So if you decrease the volume by half, you double the pressure. So pressure is going down as the volume is increasing because the pipes are empty and the fuel is going into the pipes. So let's see. Yeah, I like that primer color inside. Yeah, that's from the challenge. They're heavy, so this is a lot of weight in here. This is good. What was it? 7,000? 7,000 mass sitting in there. So it's a good weight for it. All right, we had fuel pressure. Buddy, not right now, buddy. Oh, you sit here, you silly goose. So when we prime it, it would increase that fuel pressure as we're pushing both gas and fuel into the pipes. You'll notice when you prime it, it will go up. See, this is why I hate the bucket. Frickin' bucket, man. That's why people are like, why don't you use the bucket? This is why. I spend more time fixing it than it saved me. Alright, let's see. Alright, so that's in. I don't know what to do with oil pressure yet. Let's quickly look at the PDF. This finally came up. Alright, let's see. Index, there we go. Alright, description, normal procedures, emergency procedures, auxiliary operating limitations, Lake Earth systems, operations, 7.1. Alright, so it's in 7. Gotta be 150, you donkey. Okay, it is 150, alright. What? Where are we on here? 3, wow. Jesus Christ. 220. Come on, man. Give me page 220, you scum. Oh my god, this is really annoying. 200. Give me page 2. Goddamn 100. Ugh, still not there. 250. Enter. 7. We're in the 7s. Okay. All right, 7.1. Let's go. Introduction, fuel management, wheel brakes, power plant, and related systems is probably in there, I'd say. Let's see. Auxiliary oil tank, I would say. What? Auxiliary oil tank. Ferry system control panel for fuel management there. Okay. The selector valves for the fuel tanks. Okay. Long range ferry fuel. Let me see if they have a. I need a quantity at some point here. I might as well grab the quantity now. Probably under specifications, I'd say. Alright, auxiliary fuel tanks. Let's see. Single site gauge marked 500 gallons each. Ooh, gallons. Do it in pounds, sucker. That's the other thing. I gotta check units, how they're running the units on this. Looking for hydraulics. I can't do a search on this because it's pictures. Crew duties. We're at a 7 already, huh? What the hell is hydraulics? Maybe it was up early. I don't know. I'd go through this whole fucking thing. Well, that looked like prop charts. Was it prop charts? Was that? No, it's weight limitations. This is the CG limit here. So you can be out of your CG in 2 different ways. As your gross weight goes up, if you have a certain CG, this is the forward CG. So if you have too much of a forward CG, you can only carry, like say your CG, let's say we load the front very heavy, we can only go up to 21,000 pounds. As we start to move the weight back, we can follow this here. And so if we go to 31, 31 on the CG, we can go up to 28. 28's our max gross weight. We cannot go over that. So we can, at 28,000 pounds and change, whatever it is, 21 something, 28 something, let's say 28 right here. We can go all the way back to this aft CG limit. We cannot go past that. So we can't load all the weight in the ass. We have to move it out. But as we put it too far forward, you see we start to greatly reduce the amount of weight we can carry because it would make it so that we can't get the nose up. So interesting to look at. Here's the different V speeds right here. So this is speeds and how load factor interacts with that. So the heavier you are, again, let's find real quick here. Load factor. So this is with a forward CG. where the flaps can go in or not, and the maneuvering speeds accompanying that. We already did speed limitations, flap limitations. That tells me the max RPM range right there. So this is, I talk about this somewhat, is if you run your engine at max power for too long, you need to go get it checked out by maintenance. It's like people think that, oh, you can just go full throttle all the time. No, man. Like in small airplanes, you can. You can't do it in big airplanes. Like if you go out of this range in boost here, you need maintenance. So you want to stay in that green, or else you got to go contact maintenance. They got to check the engines. So that's why you don't just willy-nilly through. Like in a lot of these planes, you cannot push the throttles all the way up. You can't. You push them up, you watch the RPM, and you watch the manifold pressure. So if you look here, you see the gauge where it's green. Do not go out of that green range. You go out of the green range, it needs to go get checked by maintenance. You can see it right here. Yep. Shows you oil. Oh, here we go. Oil pressure. Nice. 45 to 90 is normal range. $45 to $110. So $110 is going to be where the oil pressure gauge is fucking weird, man. Let's go max oil pressure of... See, it goes way out of range. I can't put markers on it, so it just look weird. So I think what I'm going to do is go to a max of 110 on those. Let's do that. Do that. Because again, I can't put marks on there, so do that. So that's good to know. Oil temp, I'm not going to bother with oil temperature. Fuel pressure here, it's going to be 16, 18, and then 18's max pressure. See how small of a window it is? Like the gauge goes from 0 to 50. But normal operating range is going to be here. So like it's got a huge gauge, but it's not usable. So what I'm going to do is run from 0 to 18. I don't know, do I do that or what? That's the problem. Yeah, I'm trying to decide. For now, let's go 0 to... let's go 0 to 50, and I'll fix it. We'll do something in the game to make it work. Again, it's a replica. If it wasn't a replica, I wouldn't go to all this trouble, but... Okay. Yeah, if it wasn't a replica build... I would not go to this trouble. I would make it a usable, reasonable, readable item, but it isn't. So, trying to think of what this would be. I need to see the max range here on it. Let's see. See, this is gonna be wildly different, I think. I gotta do the calculation later when I figure out what the boost system's gonna do. So that's gonna completely change it with the boost system. Ugh, 145. What is that? De-ice suction there. Instrument markings. Ground pressure is interesting. 511. Ground pressure is how much pressure the tires are putting on the ground. Unless they're talking about something else. It should be... That's tire ground pressure. It depends. Let's see. The ground pressure of the aircraft. Yep, it is tire ground pressure. Ground pressure of the aircraft wheels in the runway is given in figure 5.4. This data is based on the assumption the aircraft's tires are inflated to normal operating pressure 5.4. Where's diagram 5.4? Here it is right here. So at 21,000 pounds, ground pressure in PSI is going to be 40 for the mains, 45 for the nose wheel. This is also where your CG is. 28.5, which is max takeoff weight, is 44, 48. So this would tell you, like, if you're going to be taken off in mud, if you're going to sink into the ground. based on the pressure. So, interesting stuff there. That's more that like if you're on asphalt, that's not going to matter. Here, let's find 747, 800 ground pressure. As you can imagine, I think it's pretty damn high on a 747. We learned this in college, so I can't remember off the top of my head. See, it's going to try to give me, because YouTube, yeah, I'm looking for ground pressure, you dinghead. See how, like, the stupid shit it brings up? Like, I go for 747, 800 tire ground pressure. Pretty simple what I want. Will there ever be a plane bigger than the 380 as your top choice? Like, that has nothing to do with what I'm looking for. Nothing. God, it's terrible. It's just like the searches have gotten so bad because they're using AI, and AI has got its head so far up its ass. We learned this in college, and I, of course, don't have any of the stuff for it, but like this would tell you like how much pressure is being pushed down per square inch on a tire of a 747-800. So, for example, you can't go into certain airports. Let me see if I can go to AirNav. I'll show you guys. Let's see. Trying to find a little piddly. Go to Ormond. I know Ormond, so. Let's see. Let's find weight. All right, so right here, if you look at runway 927, it shows you the weight bearing capacity. Single wheel 30, double wheel 40. Single wheel 30, double wheel 40. All right. Go into the... What happened to it? What happened to the... Where is it? Oh, here's... All right, so you go into your chart. 5.4. Where is it? It's 5.4. It's up here. The hell is 5.4? Where is 5? Right, nope. Where's 5.4? Right here. So you look at these here. So if we look at Ormond, it's 30, double wheel 40. So on the Caribou, I believe it's all doubles. Caribou. Oh my God, DHC 4. Oh, Google used to be really good, and now it's absolute tit. It really is bad. All double wheels. Again, all double wheels, you can see. All right, so you look, double wheels. So if we have double wheels. So we have a max pressure. So like if we look at our pressures on our, it's ground pressure. Look at it here. Double wheels 40. We exceed 40. So if we were going into that airport, we could only run up to an operating weight of 21,000 pounds with a CG of 26. But the nose wheel would be too high. So we couldn't land on that runway. We're too heavy. We would damage the runway. So that's the sort of stuff you need to check. Now go into a commercial airport like Boston. All right, go into Boston. So like that's why some of the stuff's complicated. Go into weight bearing capacity 120 for single wheel, 250 for double wheel. Tandem doubles 550. That's your ground pressure. So you look at your ground pressure, where double wheels, our max ground pressure is 48. You would then go to Boston, you look, yep, we can land on this runway, 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 we can land on this runway. That tells you if you can land on the runways. So that's important to know. KDAB. Trying to see if the short runway at DAB can take it. Right, double wheel 224, 225 right here. Look at this one. 7 right, 25 left, weight bearing capacity. Okay, so 7 right is the small runway used for, like I've taken off 7 right. This is where I did my flight training, or most of my flight training. Look at the double wheel capacity, 38.5. So knowing this information, 16, okay, that's good. So if you look at the airport diagram, This here is 7 left, 25 right. This here is 1634. We could land the Caribou on this runway, We could not land on this runway because we're too heavy. We'll damage the runway. So these two runways we could land on, this one we could not. So what's the distance? Like we could physically take off probably on this runway. We could physically land on this runway in a Caribou, but it would be illegal because we would damage the runway. You can see 38.5 is as heavy as we can be for tire ground pressure. Hopefully you guys found that interesting. That's what this chart's about. You have to know this because you look at your airport and you're like, nope. Ah, shit, I'm trying to think of a grass strip. Let's see. Trying to find the one in Daytona we used to land at. Was it Deleon Springs? Massey Ranch. That's what it is. Massey Ranch. X50. I used to land here. Used to take students here, so you could actually do grass field training. Did they pave it? They paved my... Oh, no, okay. They do have the grass strip. They still have the grass strip? Oh, my God. They ruined so many airports by making them competent. Asphalt, fair condition. Let's see. Did they get rid of the grass strip? I think they did. You sons of bitches. They got rid of the grass strip, I think. Yeah. Looks like they paved it. Yeah, they paved it, you bastards. Let's see, grass strip. Oh my God. Google's so fucking bad. It's so bad at this point. Grass strip, runway. Oh my God, could you just, like, show me one, man? Oh my God, please just show me the identifier for a grass strip. Google is so friggin' bad, it really is. Grass runway. Airport with grass runways. Jesus. 64L. Let's try that. Okay. Doesn't know what 64L is. U87. There we go. You still grass. Let's see. Turf. Look at that. My God. Google finally didn't shit in my ear. It's not going to show a weight restriction or anything. But, yeah, you got to worry about grass strips, too. Likely, they're not going to show compaction of grass strips. But you'd want to be careful going in there because you could start putting ruts in there. And, like, let's say you go in a Caribou and you have big tires and you put ruts in the ground. And then on a wet day, and then some Cessna goes in there, their wheel goes in the rut, and they hit the prop on the ground. Not good time. Now, let me quickly read some chat here. Yeah, once you get the pressures too high, I gotta worry about the seals. Yeah, exactly. I could tell them to go touch grass and they paved over it. That's a good one there, Aaron. Yeah, Google is so goddamn terrible. It's so bad. It really is. It's absolutely abysmal. Drives me shithouse. Like, you even use things like, you know, putting in parentheses to say, this is the word that I care about. Give me stuff that has this word in it. It's like, nope, AI. It's like, thanks, you jackass. Okay, I still was looking for hydraulics. I think the hydraulic system is in with operations up here somewhere. Oxygen. See if I can see it real fast. Be nice if one of these was actually digitized. What's that? That's de-icing. What's that? I don't think it's hydraulics. That's heating. That's heating and ventilating. Ditching exit. Oh, let's look at exits. Okay, it does have 2 on either side there, Alistair, just none in the front. And it's got an emergency exit right there. Theoretically, I could get rid of the front door. Emergency escape routes out the windows. There's a bottom hatch. Got rears. Push out a window, it shows. It's single engine landing procedures. What's that? Engine smoke, flame, identification chart. Tell if the engine's how the engine's on fire. Let's look at that. That's fun. Excessively rich mixture. Reduced power, lean mixture. Detonation, reduced power. Possible oil leak, moderate oil leak. Bluish gray smoke. Damage or worn piston rings. Yep, they burn up your rings. Oil fire. Black or bluish gray smoke. Use fire and feather procedures. Gas fire. Use fire and feather procedures. Dense smoke. Nasty. Use fire and feather procedures. Yep. You're on fire, bitch. Shut it down. This is Max Glide. Again, for some reason, everybody and their brother in Stormworks who doesn't know anything about flying wants to glide. Talk about the glide chart here. Let's see. Maximum glide, clean configuration. Clean is gear up, flaps up. All right. Both props are feathered. This is both engine failure. Not good. Descent from 15 down to 9. Enter chart at 15,000 feet on vertical scale and find corresponding value of 29.0 nautical miles on the horizontal scale. Repeat the process at 9. Find 17.5 nautical miles. Descend 29 to 17.5. Okay, so let's see. All right, let's say we got both props feathered and we're at 15,000 feet. We can glide for about 29 nautical miles. All right. So that's a 1 to 2 glide ratio. So for every 1,000 feet, we can glide 2 nautical miles. All right. So now let's talk, let's say 15, 20 is 10. That's 5,000 feet. That's 2.5. That's 1. All right, so I'm assuming it has a reasonable... So right here. So this is the other thing that people don't get in game. Like, let's say you're at 1,000 feet. Let me count ticks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. Let's say, I don't know. What's 1/5 of this? Half. That's 2 1/4. That's 12.5. So that's 1,250 feet right there. Your glide's going to be 2.5 miles. So that's how you know how far you glide. So single engine best climb speed. This is always interesting. This is something you need to know. Single engine best climb speed. If you lose your engine on takeoff, it's going to tell you how what your climb speed is going to be. If your best climb speed is below your stall speed, you're in deep shit. So 0 flaps, 91 knots is going to be your best climb speed. Because you're trying to get over an obstacle at that point, like trees, trying to climb over, get up enough altitude. Altitude is safety. So, let's try to find this hydraulic diagram again. What is that? I think, is that normal conditions? I think that might be normal landing. I don't really look at it too hard. Here's procedures. So this is your turning radius on the ground. So this tells you, like I showed you guys, I did the asymmetrical braking. Like, if you have a twin engine, it is an absolute piece of cake to move around on the ground, because if you want to make a right turn, you push up your, a left turn, you push up your right engine, hold this brake, and you spin right around. Piece of cake. Especially if you have a good 90-degree nose wheel. Like we had a thing we could caster the nose wheel on the 145 and it would go past 90. So if we needed to caster it, we could. And then if the hydraulics were connected, we'd go up to 75 degrees with a tiller, and then it goes like 25 degrees with the rudder pedals, something like that. That's why the captain usually taxis, because they have the tiller. Let's see if I can't find... That's the walk around. That's neat. I'll probably use a lot of this for my procedures for my workshop page. Servicing diagram. That's where all the service hatches are. Oh, here's fuel. Left tank wing. Okay, there's pounds. So we get 2,400, 2484, 4968. So I gotta really cut some of this. There are ferry tanks, which I think what I'm gonna do is put. I don't know. It's got forward rear ferry tanks. I might just figure out the total fuel weight of 10728 and just split it between the wings. I think that's what I'm gonna end up doing. I don't want to get too crazy in it. It's gonna make it more difficult than fun. Let's see, pedostatic system. What are you? Hydraulic. Hey, there we are. Hydraulic system. Where is the rotation? I forget how to rotate this. All right, hydraulic system. There is the hydraulic system. So you can see hydraulic brakes right there. That's emergency brake air bottle. There's the rudder pedals, where the rudder pedals go into the system there. Kind of interesting. Circuit breakers and fuses. Electrical switches and panels. AC. Let's see if I can find just chat on hydraulic here. Normal hydraulic systems. All right. Oh, Jesus Christ. 4,000. It doesn't go up to 4,000 PSI. Hydraulic system, gauge mounted. That's just where the gauge goes, I'd say. It's an electro-hydraulic pressure transmitter connected to the pressure line in the normal hydraulics. Power is taken from the 26-volt, 400-cycle AC bus. All right. So 0 to 4,000. What is normal operating? Ugh, this is going to be a tough diagram to read, as you can see. Let's see. Okay, here we go. We're starting to get there. 2 hydraulic low-pressure amber warning lights are mounted above the hydraulic pressure gauge on the pilot's pedestal and are marked hydraulic pumps low pressure. All right, so it will go out when the pressure in the respective system reaches 1,500 psi. So if it's below 1,500 psi, it will go out, and then it will illuminate when it's at 1,100. All right, so that's going to warn you of your hydraulic pressure. So that is probably a 3,000 psi system. Yeah, I'd say it's a 3,000 psi system. I'll run it to 3,000 psi. The gauge goes to 4,000. We'll put that on the gauge, but it's never going to hit 4,000. Where's hydraulics? Right here. Yep. 4,000 psi is nuts. Cut through metal like it's nothing. All right, there's the hydraulics. I'll put that on a buzzer as well. If we go low, it'll just buzz, because I can't do a light there. Let me catch up on chat here. Yeah, I think you probably Might have a fire bottle in this, I'm not sure. Generally, if you starve the fire, like, this probably, hopefully didn't blow too much oil into the case. Problem is on this plane, the tire's in there, so hopefully there's a good firewall. Doesn't set your tire on fire. Oh, the drain plug O-ring? That's an easy fix. Supposed to change the crush washer every time. Oh, I gotta do oil on my motorcycle. It's still good, but I should do it. Hello, Rakai. How are you? Just reading chat. All right, good. So, got hydraulics finally in there. Keep going through the panel. All right, hydraulics is good. What is this? De-icing? De-ice. De-ice. Let's look at the de-icing panel. Shit. Saw de-icing. De-icing system was this way. Pitot-static. So, you guys know what the pitot-static system is? This is how you do your airspeed, altimeter, stuff like that. You're taking, you have a pitot tube. Air goes in the pitot tube, and it compares it to static air, so air that's not moving. And so it compares how much pressure the air is coming in to, static air, and that tells you how fast you're going. Yeah. Won't get into that too much. Get distracted way too easy. I'm trying to go to de-icing. What are these? Oh, okay, we got emergency side panels. What a pain in the ass this is. Where are you? Up. Oh, right there. All right, here are fire handles here. I'm not going to be able to put these in. I just don't have the space. An emergency brake in the middle. Like, I don't have space for all this shit. But, find de-icing. De-icing, where are thou? I would love it if this was digitized so I could just search. It'd be so beautiful. What was that? All right, here's the nose wheel housing. So here's the steering actuator here. Universal joint there. Cocked. Centered. Oh, let's see degrees on this. Should tell us the range. Landing gear emergency extension. Oh, this is interesting. Alright, nose gear extension. Should nose gear fail to extend when normal selector is made, proceed the following. Landing gear selector down. Hand pump selector. Emergency systems. Emergency landing gear down selector on. Nose wheel down. Hand pump selector on. Hand pump actuate. That's got to be gross. That's got to take like a ton of time to get that down. There's got to be a pain in the ass to get that down. We had gravity gear, so we would. There was a handle next to my left leg, and I open the panel, pull the handle. It was like a parking brake, and it would release the locks. And then they're heavy enough, they'd come down. If they didn't come down, you would dive for a little bit and pull up, and it would gravity them out. Let's see. Single engine landing, go around, typical. There's also a top patch on that. Find this de-icing. I saw it. There's... Nope, that's HVAC. Cargo heating. There it is. Alright, let's see. Wing and tail de-icing system. Okay, it's a rubber boot system, so it's a boots. Okay. So they're boots. Look at it. And how's it actuated? I would say it's probably off the engines. So these are your electrical wires here, and the tubes are where it's going. So here are your boots. You have a distributor valve. Who is dumping into the distributor valve, though? Combination unit dump right there. Switch ground, solenoid, circuit breaker. Let's see. The distributor valve, suction pressure. Okay, suction pressure there. Okay. I don't see what's pumping them at the moment. All right, so here is the de-icing switch panel. Pitot prop wing and tail, boots, inboard, outboard tail. Okay. Let's see, pitot prop. Try to think. I only have 4 spots. It's gonna be switches. So I think what we'll do is wings and tail. You know what we'll do? We'll do boots and prop, and then we'll have 2 lights because again I gotta change it. I don't have space for this shit. All right, let's see. Let's see. Wings. Wing. Let's see. De-ice. Wings. Prop. Flip switch. Flip switch. Let's go. Let's not do that. It's got to be on it. It's got to be an inspection system on this. I bet you it's an inspection system. I bet you look. Yeah, there is a wing inspection light. Like, they didn't have actual ice detectors. You looked out the friggin' window and saw. You turn the light on. Is there ice in the wing? Yeah. You shut it up. All right, so let's see. De-ice wings. Go all flip switches on these, and then I'll look at the actual diagram again. All right, we have pitot prop wing and tail, boots, inboard, outboard tail. All right, that's inflation rate. So let's go pitot prop, wings, tail. Let's do pitot prop wings, tail. Okay, pitot prop wing, tail. Pitot heat. Prop. De-ice. Prop de-ice. Boots wing. And boots tail. That will be our switch box here. Why is this on its own shit? 1, 2, 3, 4. What do you? Okay, good. Yeah, that's its own thing. So that's gonna be de-icing right there. Alright, good. So that's done. Let's keep going through the gauges here. I gotta do lights at some point. What's this? Volts, gen. It should be. That's plugged in. That's good. Alright, here's lights. Let's do lights. Anti-collision wing and tail. Let's actually, I think what we'll do is I'm going to wrap up here. Let's do that. So this was good work on the Caribou. And then what are we talking here? But good work on the cooling stuff. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Makes sense, like, you know, I understand why some people get frustrated with inability cooling, but it's more of an inability. They don't understand they don't understand some of the real factors that go into these things. These are real factors that happen at IRL. You know, and they'll be like, oh, you can't cool anything in stormworks. And I think, you know, those of us who've been around and built plenty of stuff, you can see. You can cool stuff. Part of the problem people get hung up on is that, you know, they have a motorcycle that will do 20,000 RPM. Yeah, but the engines are big diesel engines. And big diesel engines do not rev very high. And so they're trying to make this, they're trying to assume that their 4-cylinder diesel engine should run like a tiny 600cc inline 4 motorcycle engine. It's just not the case. And, it should run like a large diesel engine. And these are big cylinders on these, even the 1x1s. And so it's, they gotta redo their thinking. Like I talk about, when I used to drive the tractor trailer, the low end of the RPM on normal operating range was 1100. The high end was 1600. And usually you would shift at 1400. So that was a 300 RPM span. You would shift gears every 300 RPM. So it's like, it's a very small window. So it's like, a lot of those people don't understand. So they know enough to confuse themselves, essentially. They don't know, they know enough to confuse themselves, but they don't know enough to understand the differences between some of these things. And so it's understandable. But again, the nice thing is it is stuff you can learn. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you give it a like. If you're new and you have not subscribed and you enjoyed it, consider subscribing. What is this? Okay, it was commentary. I interested that. All right, guys, so I will see you later.